Lewis in the Black Horse Pub. Well, good morning and welcome to Mirador Television, broadcasting from the Black Horse Pub on the outskirts of Lewis. Well, not really on the outskirts, well into the town, but not in the very heart of it. And that is the road that leads down into the heart of the town, Western Road, opposite to a historic site, like most historic sites. Is just a patch of land now. But at one time it sported a windmill where one of the defeated royalists, I suppose you'd say, King's men, in the Battle of Lewis, which was 1264. And so we've got it all here, a pub behind me. Historic site in front of me, and away we go. Right, all right. Now, a fairly full day for you. Susie will be joining me shortly, and then we're going to have who's next? Mark maybe. Then Harry Addison. And probably some of these will get all mixed up. It is a typical breakfast show. Moving on. No set pattern. So let's take a look at the weather, shall we? Yes. Right. BBC weather, right, here we go. Today is going to reach 13 degrees. That's about, it's going to have top temperature around about noon, and it'll hold up until about 2 o'clock. No, it'll hold until about 4 o'clock. The only thing is that the sun won't be out in that period. Let's see. No rain early on, according to the forecast, anyway. But we can expect some rain about, possibly a bit of a drizzle, because it's light rain and a moderate breeze. A bit of a drizzle around about... around about 2 o'clock, I guess, and some heavy rain about 5 o'clock, and increasing in its intensity into the evening. Yes, so about 5 o'clock on, we can expect rain and fairly solid rain. Is that going to carry over till tomorrow? No, we'll have mixed sunny spells along with rain tomorrow, and the same on Thursday, with the temperature holding up at 13. Friday, the temperature resumes to 14, but unfortunately, we're back to fairly heavy rain. Saturday. We're going to have a very heady day, 16 degrees, but again, plenty of rain with that. So there you are. That's the forecast, and it is a forecast. Let us be quite clear about that. It is a forecast, and those forecasts sometimes can be wildly inaccurate. They do their best, God bless them. I mean, they go out every morning and they look at the moss on the trees, whether the hedgehog prickles, upright, and all the other old folks' tales, which actually are just as accurate as the machines can. So the machines equal them and don't replace them. Right, let's have a look at what's going on in the world. The Times. Iranian general killed as Israel bombs consulate. Oh, so the Israelis are taking on the Iranians now as well. Oh my God. Talk about escalation of war. The Times leads on reports that a suspected Israeli strike has destroyed the Iranian consulate in Syria's capital, Damascus. Senior Revolutionary Guards Corps commander Mohammad Reza Zahedi and his deputy were identified among the 7 killed. The Israeli military said it did not comment on foreign media reports. So it's keeping mum, which means it's probably as guilty as old hell. The Financial Times. It also leads on the Damascus. Well, its lead banner is Damascus hit. Iran blames Israeli strike. But its main story is that Turkish opposition's emphatic win in big cities deals heavy blow to Erdogan. There's a little umlaut or something over the G, so perhaps we pronounce it Erdogan. I'm not sure, to be quite honest with you. He's in the news so rarely, although he's a bit of a hard man. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Let's say Erdogan, and then you know who we're talking about, but it could be Erdogan. Anyway, the opposition has taken quite a few seats in the cities. Quite often, rural parts of the country will Sorry, I'm just trying to look at 10 stories at once. Quite a few votes split between rural parts of the country and the city parts. The demands and desires are fairly different. Certainly in Lewis district, the country mostly votes differently to the town. Look at the mess that's got us into. Okay. So the FT splashes on the defeat suffered by President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's ruling party in Turkey's municipal elections. The newspaper says the sweeping victories scored by the country's opposition party dealt Erdogan his most severe electoral setback since his rise to power 2 decades ago. Perhaps there's change in the air in Turkey as well. The Eye. Its banner, it says escalation fears as Israeli attack on Iran. The Iranian consulate kills 7. The economy will not be enough to save Sunak, Tories are warned. Local and general elections this year, several papers drilled down on domestic politics. Rishi Sunak has been warned not to rely on a recent economic upturn to boost Tory hopes in the polls, the Eye reports. The newspaper quotes one government insider saying that using the economy as a campaign tool is not working among local voters. The Metro. The banner headline there is "Come and Arrest Me." That's J.K. Rowling, who dares cops in a row over new hate crime law. Yes, it's a hate crime law. It's difficult to say that. Coming into effect today. She doesn't agree with it. She says if she breaks it, come and arrest her. The main story is record migrant arrivals already. In other words, we're only just into this is the second day of the second quarter of the year, and we've already got a record arrival figure. The new figures on channel crossings tops Tuesday's Metro after nearly 800 migrants made the journey over the Easter bank holiday weekend. This brings the annual total to 5,000, piling more pressure on Mr. Sunak, the newspaper says. I do feel sorry for Sunak on this. He's done everything, and he's been thwarted by European judges, the House of Lords, the French, you name it. Whatever he's tried, there's been somebody to sort of say nay. And I think it's time where if the sovereignty of Parliament seems to have gone, rightly or wrongly, if it brings in a law, we should follow that law, and to hell with all the people who decide that they don't like it. This form of democracy does not work. And actually, we're down to an Athenian type of democracy, where everybody got a vote. And what we're not told in history is it didn't last for more than a few months. They realized that it was unworkable. How long is it going to take us to realize that it's unworkable and do something about it? History will not be kind to us in this period. There's no firm leadership, no firm decisions, no firm legislation. The Guardian. Tories accused of zero progress on half of levelling up goals laid bare. Analysis by The Guardian suggests there has been no progress on half the government's levelling up targets in areas including education, skills, well-being, and that's it. A fellow at the Bennett Institute for Public Policy says the data indicates the Tories are failing to turn the tide on regional inequality. Right, okay. The Daily Telegraph. Stealth tax raid on 1.6 million pensioners. The Tories will pay at the ballot box as more retirees than ever dragged into the income levy. So give with one hand and take back with the other. Up to 1.6 million more pensioners will be paying income tax within 4 years as a result of Tories' stealth raids, reads the front page of the Telegraph. Citing new analysis by the House of Commons Library, it says up to 9.3 million older people will be paying the tax by 2023. And that's now. We're into 2024. So tax is always assessed afterwards. So, yes, it's going to be a nasty shock for some people due to the government freezing the tax threshold. So that means if you got 10,000 last year and you were within striking distance of not paying tax, then what will happen is that you will, if let's say it's 10,500 this year, is that it won't be. It'll stay at 10,000, but the pension has been upped by almost 10%. So they'll grab back money that you didn't pay last year. Oh dear, pretty naughty. Very typical. I mean, actually, politicians really are a joke now. They have no idea what's going on the outside at all. The only thing that they're very keen on and they understand is getting increases and new expenses and so on for themselves. In the heart of Britain, the Daily Mirror is GP appointment scandal. Doctor won't see you now or anytime this month as the waiting list soar. Oh, yes, absolutely. The Daily Mirror headline on NHS waiting list figures reported that 79% of patients are now waiting more than a month to see a GP. One doctor is quoted as saying, the bottom line is we don't have enough GPs. Yes, we do. It's a system. They've changed the bloody system. And nobody seems to want to understand that. They're in self-denial. We planned, our planning is immaculate. 10 times better than our grandparents was. Yeah. Bring in a few oldies. The Daily Express. 10 million junk food addicts are costing Britain billions. Billions! And the risks to our health posed by eating ultra-processed food is the subject of Tuesday's Express. Doctors tell the newspaper they want food addiction to be classified alongside alcohol and drug misuse to help combat obesity. The Daily Mail. Rishi Sunak backs author's right to free speech after she throws down challenge with a series of posts labelling trans women as men. Arrest me. Defiance of J.K. Rowling as she dares police over a new Scottish hate crime law. Leading the Daily Mail is J.K. Rowling's challenge to Scotland with its new hate crime law, which invites police to arrest her if they believe she has committed an offence. The newspaper says the Harry Potter author was backed by Rishi Sunak, quoting him as saying, we believe in free speech in this country, and Conservatives will always protect it. The Sun. Union joke is the headline. Fury at Team GB flag, red, white, blue, axed. Fury at the team. Yeah, it is a joke. If that's the flag, I wish I could show it to you right now. I don't have the technology to quite do that. It is. No, I can't believe it. I really can't believe it. Why is it that we are so ashamed of a bloody Union Jack? Sports fans share their fury with The Sun over Team GB's apparent redesign of the Union Jack, which takes creative license with the flag by adding a patterned panel and an array of different colours to the traditional red, white and blue. It follows the row over Nike's re-imaging of the St. George's Cross design on its New England kit. Daily Star. Ho, ho, ho. Well, it normally brings a smile to our lips. Let's see if it does today. Boffs come to the defense of psycho chipknickers. No need to squeeze quite so sharp. It's got a picture of of a seagull and a man holding some chips. Hug a girl. Charismatic birds deserve our respect. Boffs come to the defense of psycho chipknickers, goes the Daily Star's the headline. Splashing on a scientist's defense of seagulls. Professor Paul Graham of the University of Sussex says, we need to learn to live with the birds. Well, yeah, but I mean, if we're going to live with them, they're going to have to respect our laws. And that says thou shalt not steal. And it does, it nicks chips quite aggressively. Oh, ho, ho. Dear, dear, dear. Dear, 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 dear. Yes. There's a picture of J.K. Rowling on the front of the Daily Mail with the headline, Arrest Me. Ms. Rowling, who lives in Edinburgh, believes the anti-hate crime law that has come into force in Scotland is a threat to free speech. She has said she looks forward to being arrested if what she has written about some trans people who are protected under the new legislation qualify as an offence. Both the Mail and Telegraph highlight support from Rishi Sunak for the author's defiance. The Prime Minister is quoted as saying people should not be criminalised for stating simple facts on biology. We believe in free speech in this country, and Conservatives will always protect it. There we go. Right. I'm going to send out the little gizmo that we use to bring in correspondents and presenters and colleagues, and hopefully eventually it will get through to Susie, and she'll join me and to have another little giggle at the gizmo. It's quite often true that when we have a long weekend, particularly a long weekend, where we have the Friday and the Monday, not just the one day, that people are very slow coming back to work. Now, this is a busy road into and out of Lewes, and you can see just how heavy the traffic is this morning. And it is now, let's see, it's 20 past 8, and we should expect at least a bit more than this. But people are obviously following the time-honored tradition is, we've got Monday off. Let's go through till Friday, or at least let's say Tuesday. We haven't had a delivery at the pub yet, and I'm normally pulled away for a few minutes to get some sort of delivery. But anyway, not that busy. Not as busy as normal. If the eye can overcome the algorithm, or whatever the hell it is that tells people now, is you're looking at an empty street, but there's really a crowd there. You just can't see it. Now, the Israeli thing is I had several calls from Liza Page on the weekend, who is rapidly regaining health so that she can come back and start to thump the table again. And she says that there are many reports now from verifiable sources that the Israelis are making deals all the way around, and that they have made a deal with Hamas for a small plot of land. They will permit some of the leaders to move out of the firing line, and that they are also taking captive Hamas people to the Egyptian border, where the Egyptians are saying, "Well, don't bother bringing them here. We're not going to let them in." Now, these are from alternative sources, but there's every reason to believe that this sort of dealing is going on at the moment, and we can expect the situation in the Middle East to get worse, not to get better. It's no, what time is it now? It's 26 minutes past. So we should be hearing from Susie in a moment or two. And we'll get her take on it. But for the moment, don't know. I was going to sort of play you a little sting, but I'm not sure that I can find it because I spent a bit of time this morning trying to draw down the front pages so you could see them at the same time as me. And I'm afraid to say that the size and style of the newspapers' photographs do not fit the size and style permitted by our studio keepers, if you like, StreamYard. So I haven't been able to do that. But there are other methods. The thing is that they take a little bit longer, not only to activate, but also to pull down the photographs of the front page. Never mind, we'll get there. We have in the past about various things, and we will in the future. So I had a decent weekend. I hope that some of you did, but let me say this. The story about which paper was it about the NHS? I'm looking now. Doctor won't see you now. It's the Daily Mirror, yes. A GP appointment scandal. I was getting ready to go to church because all good Christians go to church on Easter Sunday. And I came out of the shower and suddenly the Parkinson's took over and I fell. And I didn't hurt myself. I've learned to fall in a reasonable manner, but I couldn't get up. So I have little red cords in my apartment to summon help. And I pulled the red cord and I got the help I required, and an ambulance crew turned up, and they got me to my feet, and they took all sorts of things like ECGs, and they took blood and so on, all the basics that one would expect to have every so often as you get older, which the doctor's surgeries do not provide anymore. You've got to be on death's door to get an appointment to see a doctor. And even then, it doesn't happen immediately. So I'm absolutely with the Mirror. Doctor won't see you now. But the point really that I was going to make is that in the ambulance crew, paramedics, were absolutely superb. Absolutely superb. I was told it would be 2 hours before they could get to me. They were there in 45 minutes. They were kind, they were courteous, they were very practical, very statesman-like, if you like. And they treated me with courtesy, and we chatted about the systems, and it was going to be on a joke, and they totally agreed. Totally agreed with me. Is that the system used now for you to see a doctor or to get medical help was silly, and I have particularly in the comment from the receptionist, the first line of "Can I get to see a doctor?" going in and me so saying the system is broke, isn't it? In which 99% of people, including the NHS, you would get a positive reply, is saying when it works in here, it shows not only self-indulgence, but also that people have lost the rationality. They don't bother to look outside. It works for us, so it must be working for everybody, and they're totally immersed in it. And let's go to Susie. Get in there. Good morning, Susie.
Okay.
Now you'll get some rationality instead of me rabbiting on.
Wouldn't bet on that. It's after a bank holiday weekend.
Did you have a good one?
Yeah, fantastic. Really amazing. Just been doing lots of DIY in the house, lots of painting and out in the garden. And I went for a beautiful walk where I saw lambs, a small herd of deer ran out in front of us on sort of Easter Sunday. And it was just the most magical walk. So yes, I couldn't hope for a better start.
It's a video of her cats, and she goes, "Yeah, come on, your food's ready," and they all zip in, and then they say to her, "Thanks very much," and they zip out. It's quite a charming little video.
I thought you might like to see, all the kids coming home. The two rabbits have taken to sleeping under the bed now, and they just go out the cat flap, so they're fully house trained. So it's just like having another two cats.
Yeah, that's just amazing. Yeah, they use the cat flap.
They do, and I don't have to feed them anymore because they just go and mow the lawn for me. They're out there at the moment.
That's remarkable. Now I'm just having a go about the NHS because the Daily Mirror this morning. In fact, why don't I just the Mirror says a GP appointment scandal. Doctor won't see you now or any time this month as the waiting list soar. It says headlines on NHS waiting list figures reporting that 79% of patients are now waiting more than a month to see a GP. One doctor is quoted as saying, "The bottom line is we don't have enough GPs." Now, what's your experience with local surgeries?
Well, I'm very, very blessed to be in great health, and I've never had anything touch wood wrong. The times that I have needed, I mean, the Bird and Eye, the community hospital here in Upfield is amazing. So when the worst thing I've done in my life is have 3 stitches in my finger, which was last year, and they've been fantastic here. So from my experience, great. But then I don't have anything wrong with me. So if I had lots of things wrong with me, then I mean, just God help us, really. I just, people trying to get help.
You're lucky if you've got GPs who actually, provide you with the service that you expect and want.
Yeah.
I don't. I've been trying to see my GP, not for a life-threatening thing, but just to see them, for God's sake, for about a month now, and it's just impossible. I'm looking out at a lady who's walking her dog, and the dog has just pooped on the pavement, and she doesn't realize if the dog had done it about 30 seconds before, he would have been on TV.
Having a poop. I hope she picked it up.
No, she didn't. That's the point. She's one of the naughty ones.
I mean, I have a dog. One of my bugbears, because I do have a dog and I do have lots of bags. And if I haven't got a bag, I find something else. But I do think it's just laziness. But that, aside from the NHS.
Yeah.
I mean, the big thing about the GPs, they do video links now, but then not everybody's able to have the technology to be able to do that.
No, and I mean, actually, it's quite an accident that she was caught here, because there's nothing along, as far as I'm aware, there's nothing along this stretch of Western Road. Although the pub does have a CCTV, but I think it's internal. It's to make sure that I don't have more than 10 chocolate bars in the morning, and that when I have the gin, that everybody knows that I'm having my tot of gin.
Yes, I guess people aren't aware that they're being filmed as they walk past.
I know. We, as a matter of fact, I put it up in the window, really, so that people can see Lewis, a little bit of Lewis, but I don't put it up in the same place every morning, because it's a small remote camera. The quality is very good. I mean, you can see that, and that's the camera on the screen there. But it's very, very portable indeed. So I put it up looking in different directions. So if people sort of think, well, I'll take a look because Keith puts up a camera there, they'll be disappointed, because I put it up wherever it's convenient to me in the morning, whenever it'll stop me falling down. But just to carry on with the NHS.
Yes. I mean, the original question you said, there's not enough GPs. There's not.
Well, I actually tugged on. I'm in a sort of semi-sheltered place, and I tugged on the red cord, and they got to me straight away. But we had to shout at one another, because I was lying on the bathroom floor, completely unable to get up. I just lay there. So we had this conversation, and they said, and they called the ambulance, and they said it'll be 2 hours, I'm afraid. And I thought, well, I'll just lie here and I'll think things through. I'll make it my time. And I thought, no, bugger it, it's not very comfortable. So I got onto my hands and knees eventually and crawled into the living room place and got onto the settee, which is where I was when they came within 3/4 of an hour. But I found them, and I've had the ambulance in the past, and I say to them, I feel guilty. There must be people who need an ambulance much more than I do. But we have a chat while they work me over. And they give me an ECG, and they take blood, and they do all sorts of things that the doctor's office doesn't do anymore. So I'm able to chat to them, and they are very, very pleasant and very, very helpful and very, very efficient. Now, and this is a new service, it's an emergency, turn up as fast as you can service, not just the regular ambulance service. And why can't the rest of the NHS be like that?
Well, I guess it takes a fall for you to get a check over. So I imagine lots of people will be doing fake falls.
Well,
But, one of my experiences with a
through my
client,
mind is I'm going to fall.
yeah.
And I'm able to fall without hurting myself. I've learned that.
And did you have any clothes on if you were in the shower though?
Did I have any
clothes on? Did you keep your dignity?
Oh well, I mean, it's very undignified. But since mostly I'm on my own when I fall, it doesn't matter. I've fallen in the pub a couple of times and been helped to my feet. But by the time they notice me, I've hit the ground.
I just have this lovely vision of you just saying, "Oh, bugger it! I'll just lie here and wait on the floor in the bathroom." And like,
yeah. Well, don't.
Very stoical.
It is not at all dignified. I mean, it's difficult to say that people talk about elderly people and their dignity. And a lot of people sneer at that, what the hell do they mean? Old people don't have dignity. Well, we bloody well do. And
they do.
And it is dented when you when you fall down. And the things that you used to be able to do. Oh, I mean, if I had fallen even 5 years ago, I'd go onto my knees very quickly and got up. And now I can't. It's awful.
But my whole lot of my job, my care role, is dignity, and some roles it's just sort of personal companionship. But when you're doing personal care, that is a loss of dignity when you've got someone who you don't know and coming to do things. And so I'm very much about dignity. And I remember one gentleman, he refused to have me at one point and says, "I cannot have a lady, a pretty lady, the ones that I used to chat up in the past, helping me shower." So you wouldn't even see me. I was like, "It's all right, I'm not looking." And then you get the other ones that go, "Look at this hernia in my groin here." I'm like, "I don't want to, thank you very much." It's like, yes, they're the show-offs, and they're the ones that, yeah.
Well, I actually don't. I'm not very dignified at all because I openly laugh at my Parkinson's. I mean, I'll go into a pub, and as I say, I go in and I stagger and pretend to be drunk, whereas there are a lot of other people in there who are staggering, pretending not to be.
Lovely, right.
But I've never quite understood why people like to hide. Chef's arrived. He's picking up the food that's outside and bringing it in.
Oh yeah, they're still there.
Yeah, there they are. You see them go past.
Yeah.
And but people like Neil Diamond, famous people, only, they can get it without me. Have hidden that they've got Parkinson's, and then suddenly they come clean, and why they hide it, I have no idea. Michael J. Fox is absolutely superb. He cannot stand. I mean, I'm getting to his stage, I suppose, bit by bit. He cannot stand, and he's quite open about it. I mean, he appears in celebrity shows and that sort of thing, and has to be carried to the chair. And he's done marvelous things. There's the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's, but for some reason there was an item on yesterday's news about it. I missed the item, but I heard the Parkinson's bit, and it said bluntly there is no cure for it, and there isn't. They haven't found a cure. So if we've got it, we've got it. and I tell it to put it bluntly, bugger off. And that's the way I think I should treat it. Anyway,
Well, I think that's a very good way. It's that positive mental thinking, and a lot more people now are turning to that sort of attitude, some more homeopathic remedies, because they can't see GPs, and also we don't know what people are putting in our bodies anymore. So I think a lot of my cousin, for example, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and he refused to have treatment. He's battled it with his mind, with his diet, and with exercise and doing mindful activities. And so far, he's doing really, really well.
I mean, you get out and about amongst people who are ill. There's no other way of describing it. People who are ill. Do you find that they're much more positive then?
Yes, and I find people so amazing. And I think, like with Michael J. Fox, how are we supposed to be aware if it's all hidden and behind closed doors? So, and I think there's becoming more of an awareness. I mean, there's things I never knew about growing older, and I consider myself really privileged to work with seniors and to see their amazing sort of fortitude, I think the word is, and strength. I've had a stroke there I've had, who's sadly now passed away, but she lived in a chair for 3 years, couldn't move without the help of a trolley, couldn't go to the toilet without assistance. And she was a brilliant lady, absolutely brilliant. We just used to giggle and have a laugh. There's a lot of people who just give into it and just like, one client, another client I had just said, right, that's it, I'm just going to sit in my chair and die, which is what he did. I sort of looked after him while he went through that process, and he passed away in January. But it's all about your it took a year. It's all about your mindset.
Yeah, the thing that I would have thought, I mean, I'm no star, of course. Michael J. Fox is absolutely famous, but we have a pretty fair archive of Mirador television, and I quite often, when I'm reviewing stuff, see videos of me when I could actually run, and I often wondered what it would be like to see when you're disabled what you were like when you were able. It doesn't bother me in the least. I like it, but I've often wondered where somebody like Michael J. Fox, who now cannot walk at all, would sit and watch one of his movies. I mean, particularly when he was younger and very active. I remember one where he's a doctor on the way to San Francisco and gets stranded in a small town, and he has to work out his speeding ticket by doing doctoring stuff, and it's a very amusing movie. But he's certainly very, very active.
I think Back to the Future, very active in that.
Well, Back to the Future, absolutely, yeah. I mean, his skateboard performance in that is, I can't stay on a skateboard at all.
I can't either. I've tried, but no, I've always landed on my bum. So never got that one.
Right. What else happened to you on the weekend that you found interesting?
This weekend, it's gone so fast. But I've literally, my partner's building a cabana in the garden, so I've been helping him, or sort of watching and helping him with cups of tea and beers, while I've been doing lots of DIY. It's been just very peaceful. My children are with their dad, so for me, the Easter egg hunts are a distant past now.
Oh, Easter egg hunts!
Yeah.
I'd forgotten all about Easter egg hunts.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed a trick. Yeah.
So lots of there's at the end of my garden's a communal garden, which I call the fairy garden, which is beautiful. So there were lots of kids there doing Easter egg hunts this weekend, and I went, oh, time's passed on that I no longer do them anymore. So, like you say, every day things change in our lives. They never stay the same.
Well, when my grandsons were quite little, in Northern Ireland, we used to go to, I think it's called Scrabo Tower or Scrabo Tower, something like that, and it's a folly. It's a tower that sits in the middle of nowhere, but it's on a hill, and we used to roll Easter eggs down the hill and get race to the bottom and see who could get there first, so we could stuff our faces with chocolate eggs and so on. I totally forgotten about that now. Isn't that interesting? The things that you were right in your face at one time, is you've forgotten that you did them. Well done, Susie. You evoked a memory in me.
Yes, I think the last one I did, my mum did for me, and it was a baking hot day. Absolutely, it was so hot, and yeah, they didn't last. They all melted. By the time we got there, they all melted.
Yeah. Now, my favourite chocolate bar is a Twix. I think that they taste absolutely delicious, but you can't hold them for more than 30 seconds before the chocolate starts to get onto your fingers. So talking about getting sticky is my breakfast chocolate bar. It sticks my fingers. And there was at one stage, some chocolate bar company realized how uncomfortable this can be. And I think it was Smarties. It sticks to your sticks to your tongue and not your fingers or something like that. It was a slogan anyway, and I thought it was a brilliant slogan.
Well, Smarties never actually touch my fingers because you've got the handy little tube just to pour it.
Yes.
You've got them back a tube of Smarties.
Anything in the news that struck you on the weekend? Are you interested in the leadership in Turkey, for instance, or what's happening in the Middle East with Israel?
I have deliberately shut myself away from the news this weekend to just have a peaceful bubble, because there's just so many atrocities going on. I have listened this morning, and it's just massacres and people being murdered for no apparent reason. So I have deliberately just given myself a little bit of a break this weekend, because it can become very sort of just quite depressing, really, because it's just these horrors going on across the world, and it's just wild.
Yes, it's amazing. It is global, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the boats, I think 5,000 people tried to cross this weekend. I think I saw that. So
yes,
there's an awful lot of traffic going on in the world around me, but sometimes I need to have a sort of a mental, emotional break from it, because it's a lot to bear. I'm an empath, so I carry people's emotions and fear, and so sometimes I just have to protect myself. But yeah, it's just.
Yes. I mean, I hadn't mentioned specifically the boat people, but it would appear from today's headline in one of the papers that we've now done over 5,000 for the first quarter of the year, and that was almost the total for one of the last 2 or 3 years, and it is. I totally failed to understand. I mean, I tend to favor some of the dictators. I recognize that dictators can be awful, nasty people. In fact, most of them are. You have to be a dictator, but at least they get things done. It seems to me that we've got to the point where our parliament and our government can't do anything because they're afraid of what's being said. whether it's the Archbishop of Canterbury raving on about women belonging to private clubs. I mean, I would like only because of lockdown did I resign from my club, which was on Pall Mall, and it was one of the top 5 clubs in the country, and it was all male, and actually Marcus Welby was a member of it, and he resigned because we wouldn't let women in. But the point is, really, we didn't make a big fuss about it. We did. Women could go into the club; they just couldn't become members. But I thought, what would he say if I applied for membership of the Women's Institute?
Oh,
yeah.
Good point.
And actually, the reason that no government will actually bring in legislation to force these clubs, and right now it's the it's the club that gets all the money from Winnie the Pooh, the Garrick, which is basically an actors club, is three High Court judges have resigned from it. Well, good luck to them. If they feel that they can't belong to a club that won't let women in, but that doesn't mean to say that it's got to change. And those people who will accept it any more than the women's clubs, and it's actually the women's clubs that get more excited because that you can't actually legislate and say men's clubs have got to let women in. You've also got to say women's clubs have got to let men in, and that's it's the women who it's the wrath of the women that keeps it. So people who are totally out of touch.
Yeah, and also I think with this LGBTQ plus, we should get that one out. Who can say who is woman, male, female? How can we actually give a gender anymore? It should just be a club. Would you like to join this club? These are the activities we do. It's if we're going to be all embracing, which the nation is, which it should be, but also for me, we're all just people at the end of the day. We are people, whatever gender we are, we're a person. So it just should bring it straight back to that. We're a person. Would I like to join that club? Yeah, that sounds good for me. That's
well, I mean, this television station does not believe in ratios, but a lot of what I consider to be silly people do. That's why we've got such a weak parliament, because we have to have X number of women and X number of black people and X number of gay people and so on and so forth. And there's got to be a ratio, a quota.
Yeah. So that's what it's all about now.
Stupid. What we need is 600. I used to start off each morning, and I'm going to go back to it. 650 members of parliament, and I wouldn't give tuppence for any of them. And part of the reason that we're in such a fix is because most of them are there for a whole host of reasons other than being a good MP. It is because they are a woman. I don't care whether we have 650 women MPs if they are the best.
Yeah.
But I once and we got into this sort of thing, and I expressed this view, and some chap in the discussion turned around, sneered, and said, "Oh, you're a meritocrat." Well, what's wrong with being a meritocrat? You get there on merit. You don't get there for any other reason. But there you are.
My background before having children was in recruitment, so I was a special recruitment advisor. So a lot, I was recruiting, and it was people. The criteria is based on the ability to do the job. And that is it. Solely, have you got the criteria that match the job specification, that match up at interview, match the company values? It's for the job. And I remember I worked for the National Clinical Assessment Authority that was set up in the wake of the Dr. Shipman murders to assess underperforming doctors and dentists. Very predominantly white collar. So, recruitment, there weren't it was very, very white collar. And I remember going through the process to get the disability 2 ticks for the company to show that we were, a company that worked towards employing people with disabilities. We employed this wonderful guy in IT who was profoundly deaf, but he could do his job. And I was sort of got that 2 ticks. But actually, no, I think back to it. The top layer were white collar, and all the support staff were of ethnic minorities, backgrounds. So yes, you could see that there was very much a gap there, a cultural gap. And in actual fact, I was actually more bullied as a white person than I was discriminated against. Even my administrator, she was African Caribbean. She used to sit with her back to me, and I go, morning, Annie, and she would do that sort of with her lips at me. And and one of the HR manager had one lady who just sit with her back to her, and hum. And if we did that, we'd be in a lot of trouble.
Yes, indeed. The thing is that people persuade themselves it's like the NHS. They get so heavily involved in defending something, they start to think that it's the right thing, and as a consequence, there's no shifting them. So we don't get legislation. I just find this lack of imagination all the way around. I would much rather see a lot of mistakes made by government who's imaginative, rather than plough on with things which basically do not work.
Yes, and I think there's no innovation, and they're just doing what's it, Einstein's relativity of madness, isn't it? They're doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. And that's what you just think, and it's getting, they're inert, really. There's nothing happening. We're just allowing people to go into the country. I don't know where they go. But there's nothing happening. Just everybody come in. Here's the open door for the UK.
So what's on for the rest of the week for you, Susie?
I've got. I hadn't even thought about this. I realised it's Tuesday already. So I've got some client visits. I've got to go to Lewes to see a certain gentleman. So I'm heading over today to Lewes to go and see the damage. So just quite a quiet week this week. I have my usual clients, and then I sort of roll with the flow. Really, it's like anything can happen every day, so I never know what's going to happen. So you have to ask me at the end of the week what's happened to me.
Well, now as I got a bit of a surprise for you, because he's not normally on a Tuesday. Very handsome bloke, but believe me, clever is a word that wraps him up. Is Dr. Mark Maybe?
Morning, Susie. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Good morning.
Nice to see you.
I was surprised.
I think Keith wanted to get me out of bed early today, so.
Yes, and me. I'm not a morning person, so you're very lucky to get me out of bed, Keith.
Yeah, well, I retired about a month ago, and I was quite looking forward to not getting up to about 9:30, and sort of just doing things slowly. But Keith ruined all that because he's up at 5 o'clock. He's because he's up at 5 o'clock every morning. He wants everyone else to be up at that time.
Yeah, he keeps working in too.
I'm one of those selfish people. If I'm up, everybody else should be up.
Well, I remember it when I was at school. My headmaster once said to us all, "Plenty of time to sleep when you're dead." And stuck with me.
That's a great moment, isn't it? Yes, absolutely. Where
Well,
are you based? You look somewhere nice. You've got a lovely tree out the back of your conservatory.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm in Uckfield, so it looks like I'm somewhere very exotic. But my lovely neighbours have this tree, and I do feel like every time I wake up in the morning, I feel like I'm on holiday. So it's it's like a palm tree, but yes.
I thought you were in Tenerife or Portugal or something lovely like that.
I wish. But yes, it does. I love it because I could like my bedroom's just above the conservatory, so I like to look out the window and see this palm tree, and I imagine I'm out in Tenerife.
It's made me think of the sunshine. Although I have to say, I live in Stoke-on-Trent, and it's actually blue sky today, which has been a bit of a change from the rain and miserable weather. So,
right, it's lovely. Quite often, my cats are up the tree chasing the birds, like the berries on there. So I'll be drying my hair, and I'll see two cats sort of climbing up the tree.
Do you know one of the famous things about Uckfield?
What's that?
It was the last place that Lord Lucan was seen before he disappeared. He stayed with a family that had apparently, I don't know whether it's still in existence, but there is a stately mansion in Uckfield, and he knew the family, and that was the last time that he knocked on their door, and they said, "Oh yes, come in," and then they found out what he'd done and gave him the boot.
Patio somewhere.
He might be up that tree, mightn't he?
Yeah.
He might be up that tree still with your two cats are after him, after Lord Lucan, not after the birds.
What's that? I can never say it. I can never remember his name. Hoedstraken? Van Hoedstraken?
Yeah.
I think it's the massive sort of like a palace that was built, a beautiful golden dome, but it was never finished. He used to own all the shops in the high street, so quite well, a bit like the Cray brothers, I think. But it's very much patrolled, so you can't get in to see this palace. And so many people try each year. Van Hoedstraken, that's it. I think it's Nicholas Van Hoedstraken.
And where's that?
It's like a palace. It's amazing, but everybody's dying to get inside and see it. So I think they all say it's guarded by armed patrols.
Keith, you got an image of a busy road up. What's the significance of the busy road you've got up, Keith?
Dizzy. Oh, right. It is. That is outside the pub. That is live outside the pub.
Oh, right. It's really busy, isn't it?
Yeah. We have experimented with an extra camera, which I hope that we'll put to better use.
One of the 8.
One of the 8. I've got 4. Give me 1 second. There's one waiting here.
There's another one on the table next to me.
Here's another one.
Oh, gorgeous. Beautiful. I love them. I've got 8 cats and 2 house rabbits.
8 cats? Oh,
yeah.
How lovely.
You wouldn't know it though. You wouldn't. They don't feel like it. But yeah, and I've got these 2 house bunnies, one of which just shot through the cat flap a minute ago. Which never fails to amuse me when you see a rabbit come through the cat flap.
That is funny.
Yes.
A show on Mirador. It looks like I've got one.
Yeah, you've missed out. I've got 4 cats. I thought that was a lot, but they're
I just kept accumulating them. 2 of my cats had kittens, and then I ended up keeping 2 kittens from each litter because I named them.
I've got she's not in here at the moment, but I've got a sort of a kitten who's keeps coming into heat, and she doesn't stop dragging herself across the floor. I've got to get her neutered, I think, because I was actually up early because she was meowing at the bedroom door at 6 o'clock this morning. So not having any of that. So
So when I get out of bed in the morning, they all get in.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're proper. It's interesting because they are proper characters. People say that dogs are good, but I think cats are, you don't have to walk cats, and they're great company, and they're all little individuals, and they've all got individual traits that make them so funny. And I'm sure yours do the same, Susie.
They do. Like the one I just showed you, Tango, she's incredible with dogs. She's like Mother Earth. But every night she sits in the Budweiser box by the fire and attacks it. And I have to keep replacing the Budweiser box once she's destroyed it. It's like she's in a little boat. She just sits there and pecks at it. It's really bizarre.
It's amazing. And they seem to want to they spend more time in boxes. I've got 2 British Blues, and they actually, we bought trees and games and toys, etc. But what they really love is being in that particular one. Bunty, who's a boy, actually made a mistake. I got 2 British Blues. One that was named after my wife's dead aunties. One was called Wendy and one was called Bunty. So we called them Wendy and Bunty. And when I took Bunty to the vets, he said, "I think it's either trans or it's got a change in sexuality because it's definitely a boy." But
I have
Bunty,
the same with my Belle. I've got a lovely one called Belle, but he's a boy. We thought he was a girl.
Yeah, it's
And
funny.
he wasn't given a meow as well. He was so cute. He can't meow. He just goes,
it's interesting. Can't meow. Go,
So I noticed Belle at the other night. I had a baby gate across into the lounge, which used to be for the rabbits, and because it was raining, these cats were coming in and then bouncing off the baby gate. Well, every single one of them slipped and fell on its head because it was wet. You don't need TV, people. You just need a baby gate, some water, and a couple of cats.
Oh yeah, they give you hours of amusement. It's non-stop, isn't it? Really, it's great. Yeah, they are proper. People say cats are boring, but they're proper characters.
They're hilarious. You put a plastic bag on the floor, and then within minutes it started to move around. They just get in everything. If you move it, you find them in odd places. I used to have one that went into the bed. If I had a little snooze, I was jumping into bed, and this cat would just go out of the bed. Keith's looking at us, going, "Oh my God."
Yeah, what are they on about? Oh my God.
No, actually, in the latter days in Northern Ireland, we lived on a farm, and we had 3 dogs and 7 cats. And I used to come home in a business suit and immediately take the dogs into a barley field for a walk. And the 7 cats all insisted upon coming. So I would walk through the barley field, and all that the neighbours who were in various farms on hills around could see were the tails. So here I was with they could see my hat, and then they could just see the tails following me. They dubbed me Uncle Moses.
Yeah, Tango's like that. She comes for a walk. And also, if I go down to the fairy garden, which I call it, take Teddy down there for a little run, all the cats come out to play, and you get in there, suddenly all these cats emerge from the trees, like a video, Keith. And then when I come back, I just go, kitties, and they all come flying back and come through the gate with me. And I do look like the mad cat lady. I used to have a pet pig at one point as well, so that was. Yeah, I had a pet pig for 3 months that lived in the house.
Mark, did you do anything special on the weekend? Mark?
The frozen.
Sometimes the internet interferes. There we go. Mark, did you do anything special on the weekend?
No, not a lot. It was a nice, quiet, relaxing weekend. So it was one of those not do a lot. In fact, the weather was shocking here. Saturday and Sunday, it was absolutely terrible. It poured with rain all day, so there wasn't really a lot that you could do. We went up on on Friday up to my in-laws all live in West Yorkshire. So we went up to, on Friday, we did go up to Skipton. That's a beautiful part of the world. And my mother-in-law lives in she's got a log cabin in a place called Gargrave. So we went to a pub called the Mason Arms, and it reminds me very much of the pub you're in, Keith. Very oldie worldy, and once again with an excellent. This with a landlady, but she really looked after you, a bit like Declan looks after you, and very fine. I wasn't driving, so I could have a few whiskies, which was good. So that made it even better.
A good landlord or landlady is worth their weight in gold.
Yeah, absolutely. This pub's in a small village, but it's always busy, and they do food. But a couple of people said it's mainly because of the landlord who's so hospitable, and the landlady, they're so friendly that they make it. You are right, Keith. They absolutely make it, don't they?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
At the end of the day, it's a hard. You don't realise what a arduously hard job it is, because they were telling me, when they shut at 11 o'clock or 11:30, they've still got about an hour's work to do of doing the tills, stocking up. There's a lot. There's a lot of work behind the scenes.
At least twice a week, Deck says to me, "I'm in at 6 tomorrow. I'll race you in." We have a race to see who gets here first. But the moment that he's through the door, he'll say, "Okay, Keith, good morning. I'll make you a coffee. Then I've got to disappear into the cellar because I've got work to do." So sometimes he's working from 6 in the morning until, as you say, they close the, I don't know whether it's 11 or 11:30. I've never up that out, but he's here for a good 12-hour stint. It isn't an easy job.
No, I used to, it's a long time ago now, good grief, back to about 1978, 76, 77. I worked in a pub, but we used to serve the beer in a jug. We used to go down to the cellar and bring the beer up in a jug and actually pour the beer.
That's wonderful.
In the jug. And the old guy who ran it, he was in his 80s when he used to wear these beautiful white gloves, and used to bring up this beer and serve it. But
fantastic!
It was proper old. That was proper old school.
Absolutely.
It was good. But now there's quite an art to keeping the beer and cleaning the pipes out, and it's not just shove a barrel on. I think with lager you shove a barrel on, but with real beer, with real ale, it's cleaning all the pumps out, isn't it, Keith?
Yes,
and keeping those perfect. That gives you the perfect pint. Not that you'd know, Susie, unless you drink ale, Susie.
No. I drink a lot of Prosecco. That's my thing.
Oh, sounds very good. Yeah, sounds perfect.
Yeah, I used to drink. I can't drink spirits anymore. Not now. I've got to get up at 3 o'clock.
Are you up early every day?
No, only on Keith's days.
Oh, Keith. I don't know.
I've had 2 children. I've had enough early mornings.
Yeah, you don't let us lie in, do you, Keith, anymore?
No, well, I sometimes do on a Saturday, because there is a certain lady who does my shopping for me, and I don't have to go out on a Saturday morning now.
Oh, lovely. Oh.
Who's that then?
Yes.
Have you got a loyal maiden, have you then, Keith?
Me.
Am I heavy maiden?
Do you know what? Because I have your shopping, there's quite a lot of it when I've actually done it. So I have a massive hold-all that's on like a wheelie with wheels, like my luggage. And I just wonder, the residents at Cleveland House must keep thinking I'm sort of like taking in out bodies or something, because I'm in and out of this huge bag all the time. Sometimes it's light, and sometimes it's incredibly heavy. So God only knows what they think about this woman running around in a little dog ate my little apron and a
Yeah,
massive holder.
yeah, they most probably think you're Lord Lucan's wife.
What was the name of the movie? The Body Snatchers. The Body Snatchers. Yes.
Yeah.
Perhaps they think they were snatching bodies.
God only knows.
Sounds desperate, doesn't it? Really.
Although, Mark, I don't know whether you've got anything like this in Stoke, but one of the key churches here, which has been desanctified and is now they've kept all the architecture and so on, but it's now a community centre where various things take place. But it's got a lot of graveyards, gravestones, which are like tombs.
Mm.
And our late colleague, Stephen Catlin, is a marvellous man, was very keen, as I am, on history of Lewes. And he was telling me that they are mock, that they're empty, and that the bodies are in a cellar way down below, because in the not the last century, in the 1800s, body snatching was prevalent. People made money by snatching bodies, digging them up, and selling them to medical schools and so on.
Yeah.
And people didn't want their relatives dug up, so they made these mock tombs, and the real not funeral. What was it? The coffin place, grave. It was way down out of sight. Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. We've got a church that's around, but it's very old. It dates back to the 17th century. But I know there are lots of tombs there, so no doubt they're equally empty with people grabbing parts, etc. I was watching an interesting program, Keith. Sort of, we all talk about innovation, Susie, and I was just amazed watching this guy carrying out. He was in one room and he was carrying out an operation in another room, and he was doing it all sort of almost online. And he was he was carrying out a hysterectomy on a lady. Obviously, on a lady, wouldn't it carry? Well, you might on that, but and was saying that it was a way of doing it was actually much less intrusive, and they could really use proper keyhole surgery to do most of it. But he was doing it with a microscope and cameras, and the patient was in one room, and he was literally sat in another room. And they said that instead of just doing sort of 4 or 5 patients a day, he could do 10 patients a day. Operating. Amazing,
it's incredible.
Really.
Incredible, yeah. Isn't it?
It is. It's
yes. I'm not sure that Susie knows about the University of Innovation, which she's probably going to get terribly involved in very soon. But perhaps you'd like to explain it to her, Mark, and that'll give our viewers another chance to know about it.
Yeah, sure.
Is that my arm being twisted behind my back right now, Keith?
yeah, you can tell. Yeah, so shopping, Tuesday morning, and now School of Innovation. So it's a full-time job, Susie. I hope you haven't got a real job, have you?
You better ask Keith that one. Are you a real job, Keith?
It is more than a real job, believe me.
I'm a private carer, so I'm a private PA, so I have various clients that I go and keep alive for their families and for themselves. So
very nice, very nice.
But
yes,
yeah.
I'm working with 2 young guys, Will Hill and Rob Pickerskill, and we're setting up a new university. Now, the last sort of new university, Warwick University, it was set up in the 70s. But there's been lots of discussion about graduates that are coming out of universities that aren't employable, that don't have the skills to go straight into work.
Just excuse me 1 minute. My cat's trying to eat my steak for dinner.
Oh, quick!
Get out!
Quick, the cat. The cat's got a steak, Keith. This is live TV, Keith.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's the
Well,
same
the
as
amount of
talking to
activity goes.
the brews
I'm
in.
right by the cat flap, so the dog, the rabbits, and the cats, and then the one cat's trying to eat my dinner. So yes, and one's in the Budweiser box, attacking the Budweiser box, which seems to be a thing. So yeah. Anyway, lots of traffic.
Yeah,
so going back to what you were saying.
Yeah. So these two young guys have been raising some capital in order to establish a new university, and it's going to be called the School of Innovation. Initially, it's not going to be a traditional university. It's not going to have lectures and big lecture theatres and grandiose areas. It's going to be very much workshop type activities the students will do. And we'll have practitioners coming into the university, not to do lectures, but to run little workshops, get the students doing live projects, etc. And then the students will spend time in industry over what will be a 3-year period. And it's a bit of an extension to the sort of apprenticeship scheme, but they'll spend 75% of their time at the university, and rather than having, I say, a massive big building, we'll start off in Manchester, and then we're going to have a hub in Manchester, and then spokes in various areas. I've been talking to Keith about having a spoke down in Lewes, where and really to find cold spots where there aren't universities. I know there's a university in Brighton, etc., but there's not actually a university to go to in Lewes, and it isn't necessarily designed for people who are sort of 20s. It's designed more for mature students, people that want to change careers, etc. So it's really exciting. It's going to be very different, but like everything in life, the bureaucracy of doing it is just bonkers. The amount of paperwork. There's something called the Office for Students, and they regulate universities. But like any government body, it's full of bureaucracy. So we're going through that at the moment, and we hope that we will launch it in about July, August of this year. And we want to use. We've very kindly, Keith's agreed to come onto the board of directors. We thanks to Keith, we want to link up very much with Mirador, so that we can link into other areas. And then for my sins, I went to university with my final year of my degree with two people, Jim and Tim, and me. I was a biologist. They were both economists, and Tim is the inimitable Tim Martin, who runs and owns Wetherspoons pubs. And so I've been having a little bit of exchange with him, and he's very interested as well, Keith. I just say that he's very interested. So we're going to try and mirror Mirador that Keith does in Lewes, in other parts of the country, and particularly in areas that perhaps don't have universities. So it's exciting, interesting time. We want to do. We're doing it really in partnership with Keith and Mirador TV.
Oh, it sounds amazing. Can you give me an example of what sort of workshops would be?
Yeah, so we what we're going to do, instead of students sort of coming out with lots of different degrees, they'll perhaps come out with sort of a degree in innovation and enterprise. So quite a lot of it will be sort of setting up their own businesses, the sort of practicalities of that. But one of the areas that's very lacking is engineering, for example. And a lot of engineering now is innovative engineering. It's electronics, etc. So that they spend a proportion of their time working in a workshop, in a automotive engineering company, doing sort of the hands-on experience, and then we'll do the theory, do some of the theory in the university. So a range of different areas that we can see people being involved in. But I'm always saying to Keith, you perhaps can see behind me, I'm a bit of a diehard. I've got microscopes and really interesting bits of kit in their time were very innovative, but now aren't seen as being quite so innovative. So yeah, hands-on stuff. So
is your cat meowing?
yeah, can you hear it?
My dog's looking for it. My dog's looking. Where's that cat? No.
Yeah, just gone through.
So it's a real sort of slip of university when really, rather than you going into an institute, it's bringing the institute into your home.
Yeah.
So, which is, like you said, well, that's innovative in itself, so that you're not having to go somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got workshops, and so in the university you'd have to have a massive workshop, whereas individuals might have their own workshops. So it's
So we got a company here called Fletcher Morgan. They're a really big engineering company, and they're quite willing to take people in that will work with them maybe 1 or 2 days a week. And the other change is that we're not really looking at running traditional time, so we'll do evenings, weekends, so that people that have got kids can actually get involved with it. So they might have a spouse at home that can look after the kids. They don't have the money to do that, and also sort of cutting down on the costs of going to university. Now, my daughter went to Coventry University, had a fantastic time, but she's got £35,000 worth of debt now. She lives in London. She can't afford to buy a place down there. So we were thinking, well, this would also mean that people haven't got to get a big loan out, that they could live at home, come at flexible times. Most universities shut over the summer. We won't shut over the summer, so people can carry on their studies in sort of July, August, and September. So it'd be interesting.
It's really interesting. I was at university in Canterbury, and I'm from the north, so I used to spend a lot of time travelling back up to Doncaster.
Yeah.
But you might only have 5 lectures a week, and then the rest of the time you're just sort of, dotting around, really, sleeping. So there's a huge chunk of wasted time. Exactly. And then you go away, like you say, you come up with lots of debt that you have to then pay off if you're within a certain threshold, I believe. And as a parent, I had children in my 30s, but lots of people are young these days, 18. So they can't have a baby and be at university or at college because of the practical issues around that. So that would really sort of open the doors to a whole community of people that need that flexibility to be at home to study. It makes it much more accessible.
Yeah, obviously we won't do things like medicine and dentistry and those sorts of things, but there's no reason why we couldn't. But it was really came from exactly what you're saying, Susie, that sort of no one's really addressed the real issue of widening participation and access. And a lot of it, as you rightly say, it means that going to university isn't accessible. You're quite right. Almost every university I know, students are only in for 2 days a week. So 3 days a week, they're not doing anything. And in fact, now more and more of them are working. And maybe not in the sorts of jobs they want to work in. So what we thought was that we would get students coming to what would be the equivalent of, it might be 2 evenings and 1 Saturday. And they come into the university because it would be workshop based. They wouldn't be sitting in lectures like this, falling asleep. They'd actually be doing hands-on things. And we would bring practitioners in. It might well be like, for example, they might do sort of the innovation of journalism. People like Keith might come in and talk about, running a TV studio and running a TV station and the practicality of that, but actually getting them to do the hands-on sort of work as well. And I think Keith said it, that he has had people coming in as graduates, but they're just not work ready. They don't want to roll their sleeves up, make the tea, do the more menial tasks. But that's what life's about. You've got to work your way up. So it's giving students those sorts of skills. So I think it'll be really good.
Which is also,
I should tell you, Susie, that Mark is another Keith. He doesn't think like other men.
See, I love this because when I was at uni, I learned by doing. I don't learn by listening. I just fall asleep or lose concentration. So to do practical things is, really worthwhile. And what I do a lot now at home is that, for example, my tumble dryer, the fan belt went on it, and in the past there'd be ring up a repair guy, get a man to come and do it. And I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to have a go myself. So I got good old YouTube out, got it all out, and I spent a couple of days fixing this fan belt, and I just got to the point that I just couldn't. There was one thing I just couldn't do, and I couldn't work out why it wasn't working. So, and eventually, I called somebody to come and help me because I thought I'd give it a damn good go first. And the only thing I'd done wrong was put one part the wrong way round. And you know what? The man charged me 70 quid. If that had been me, I'd have said, no, here's a tenner. You did a really good job of changing a fan belt on a tumble dryer.
Yeah, you're right, and you can, on these things you can do so much, can't you, now on YouTube. You can pick these things up, but yeah, I think sort of problem solving, those sorts of things, is really a critical learning tool that lots of people don't have. And you've used your critical thinking to say, well, I can do that, and I can look this up, and I can buy this bit, and I can do this, and that's very much going to be the essence of the school of innovation that we're going to.
Because a lot of people, I call it self-limiting belief. So many people think I can't do it because they're conditioned and trained to say I can't do it. You need to get a man. I say man, but when in my youth we get a guy to come and do all the fixing, and I've completely changed my mindset. I look at everything now. Well, I can do that, and if I can't, I'll work it out. And the washing machine. There was an error on the washing machine. What I eventually found was there was a sock stuck in it somewhere. Now I could have paid a fortune for somebody to come round, unscrew something, pull it out, and go, "Oh, here's a sock. That'll be 150 quid. Thank you very much."
Yeah. It is. There are some. This sort of going off the bit a bit, but because you've got cats, you'll know what it's like. But I've just been absolutely aghast with how much it costs to take the animals to the vets. There are some things you literally can't do, and there's actually been quite a big. I listened to our local radio, and I set something going which was about this. Because the one that was meowing, she's got nasal problems, and so I've been taking her to the vet, and every time I've taken her, it's been £50 consultation fee, and then she's needed a sachet to go on her food and a tablet, and they've been £80, £40 per item. So every time it's been 130, 40 quid. And so a bit like you, I came home and I looked up these two drugs on the internet. One of them was £2.60, and the other one was £4.10p. So I could have saved, all that money. But of course, you can't just get them without a prescription for the vet. So I said to the vet, "Can I have a prescription for these drugs because it's ongoing?" And he said, "No, I don't do that." But then to get to finale, then he said, "Look, we need to get to the bottom of this." So he said, "What I'm going to do, I can put your cat under anaesthetic, flush all its nose out, and see if there's an issue there, and that'll be £750." And then he said, "If it looks like it's anything that's more serious than that, I can send you to a consultant who can actually operate. That might cost you £4,000 or £5,000." And you think, what? It's madness. There's something you can't do.
Very interesting. Well, I had a Polish lady staying with me, and her cat was in an accident, and very similar. The nose, there's a bit of bone that stuck at the base of his neck, and it was all infected. And it was £8,000 to have an operation. And eventually, it was really strange because also the vet wouldn't give this cat these drugs, but they're prescriptions for human drugs, not just animal drugs.
Yeah.
And in the end, this cat sneezed this bone out.
Good grief.
And I think it must have been the bone that was trapped, and it actually, because of the infection, suddenly it sneezed out this bone.
Yeah.
But that was, the cost of all of that was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Or potentially.
And there isn't, unlike many things, a bit like your fan belt, there are things you can't do, but there are things that you can do. And I've realised that one of these drugs was actually that the cat was also got sickness, and it was actually a human, because I had to sign a disclaimer because he was giving some human or drugs that are used on humans. But I say I think that was £46. And when I looked it up on the internet for 20 tablets, 24 tablets, it was about no more than £4.
We were finding this as well. It's all a con, and I think they've been taken over by private companies, and it's just another money-making business rather than care.
Yeah, well, certainly around here, I don't know what's like where you are, but a lot of them now, there are 5 big companies in the UK. Medivets are one of them, and they're just massive. They just buy up veterinary surgeries and put people in. In fact, one of the great things, I live near Keele University, and they've just opened with Harper Adams College. They've opened a veterinary school, and in fact, I'm going to move my cats there. What they've done is they've opened up a surgery that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's personed by students. There's a full-time vet that's there all the time, but the students, and that's why it's very similar to the School of Innovation, the students run the surgery.
Is there an equivalent of a paramedic in veterinary surgery?
I think now they have sort of a bit like they have advanced practitioners. They have sort of veterinary nurses who are equally able to do simple things. But what's really worked are obviously the students that are involved as final year students. They've been at university for 4 years, so they're in their final year and their 5th year, so they're very knowledgeable.
Yes, I was wondering whether, in fact, a course or a degree in the University of Innovation, it could be a paramedic in veterinary surgery.
Yeah, absolutely, Keith. I think once again, it's all very hands-on sort of thing. So you could well do that. Have sort of, and I think quite a lot of people that take their animals to the vets, it's fairly routine sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Ear, nose, and throat sort of stuff normally.
Yeah.
Or back
much better than they paid 50 quid instead of 500 just to
One thing that I would love to learn now is to actually neuter animals. So rather than having to do the whole, veterinary, it's like 4 years. I love Morocco. There's a lot of beach dogs and cats, all are neutered, and I know that they go and do a cull every now and again to bring down the population of the animals. One of my things, I would just have loved to be able to go out there, set up a surgery, and get all those animals neutered.
Yeah, exactly.
And just do it all day, and I think other people in the world do it, but having to go through 4 years of study to just be able to do that, that's what puts me off.
Yeah.
If I could just learn that practice.
You're absolutely right. If you literally just learn how to neuter a cat, castrate a male, and that's all you did. Nothing. There's no difference between one cat breed and the next cat breed. So it's got to be straightforward to do. But it's another one of these monopolies, isn't it? The vets have got a monopoly. In fact, I'm literally about to ring the vet today. I reckon to have my kitten neutered will cost me at least £500. At the time I take it in, as an anaesthetic. It's neutered. It stays in overnight. All that sort of. I bet I don't get any change out of 500 quid.
Wow.
Luckily, I had Cats Protection helped me with vouchers, and
Yeah.
I had eight at one point to get done. They're all done, but yes, it's very expensive, and yet we don't keep the population of animals down, and then they make it inaccessible by having such ridiculous prices. If people don't end up getting their animals neutered or spayed, and then we have more and more animals and cats and dogs around.
My cats, not I've not out of job, but all my cats have been outside cats, but the cats I've got now are indoor cats. So actually they don't go out and mix with any. I've got one boy, he's been castrated. I've had the other two neutered, and I wasn't going to have this. I wasn't going to have my little kitten neutered, but she does go through these. She for about a week she goes through this dragging herself along the floor and meowing and things. And I thought, well, there isn't really any need, but I think I will. But I'll have to bite the bullet and pay for it. But as you say, Susie, I think if you can't afford to, and that the cats are out and about, they breed ever so quickly, quicker than rabbits. So,
I mean, it could be the cost that causes people to abandon animals.
Yeah. I think there was someone on the radio who was saying that exactly that he couldn't afford to do this, and he let his dog go. He took it up to the park and let the dog go and went away. And he said it broke his heart, but he couldn't afford that, and he couldn't afford. And he said someone hopefully will catch it and we'll take it to the vets and get it done. And it's a terrible state of affairs. I don't know why he didn't take it to the PDSA, because I'm sure the PDSA would have helped out. But it is. But you're right, Keith. It would be a really good practical way that we could do in the School of Innovation.
Indeed.
And even the thing Susie's saying, if you only did a set thing, for example, Susie, you only did neutering, then provided you got the right facilities and you got everything that was that was sterile, etc., then there's no reason why you couldn't do it. And I think it's a monopoly.
Yeah. Well, I think that sounds very attractive, because I think a lot of animal lovers would love to investigate something like that.
Yeah. It's just something that it was interesting, because they have these phone-ins on Radio Stoke, and it absolutely went berserk. I just happened to ring in, and I know the guy who does the program, Stuart George, who does the program in the morning, and he does a phone in, and I just rang in and said, I've just been quoted, £5,000 to have my cat sorted out, and it's bonkers that it's going to cost that sort of money. And I have got, I've got insurance now, but not everyone can have, insurance is about 25 quid per cat per month. So for 4 cats, £100. But people can't afford £100.
Yeah.
So the other interesting thing that the vets in Keele University have done is they charge a monthly fee. So you pay I think it's about £24 a month. But with that, you can have anything done. So you pay 24. Now, it may be that you never take your cat to the vet, but actually, if you do take your cat to the vet, and my experience over the past sort of 6 months is I've most probably spent £2,000 or £3,000 in total. And if I'd have just paid £25 a month and like Susie with 8 cats, if you're only paying £25, then it's well worth the money. But they can do that because they're using students, and that got my head to thinking about really the School of Innovation, and that they're using graduates, undergraduates for particular functions would be something you could do easily.
Yeah. I mean, actually, it's very similar. The last time I checked, which was about 3 or 4 years ago, to go and get voice training to read the news and so on in London is at least £1,000 a day.
Good grief.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'd do it for a fiver.
Yeah. I'll do it for £1. I do it for a pint of beer for Declan. If you do me a pint of beer, I do it for free.
Well, actually, don't tell anybody. But I mean, if we're going to be associated, Mirador is going to be associated. It'll be part of the package. No £1,000 for just voice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's.
Susie, you've been with me for an hour and 20 minutes now, so I'm going to say goodbye to you.
Yeah,
Mark, I'm going to hang on to you because I got Harry Atherton coming on in 10 minutes, and you and Harry will have a lot in common if you don't mind hanging around for a little while.
No problem.
No, I've had to head to Lewes to clean up your flats.
Yes,
yeah.
I will try hard to see you. I have to say that we're like ships that pass in the night. I never see Susie, but her work is so terrific. There's lots of evidence of it when I get home.
I'll come and wave at the camera in the high street.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting that your camera in the high street is interesting, Keith, because even though it's my brother used to holiday for the kids, it was incredibly busy half an hour ago, but now there's virtually nothing going on.
Yeah,
there's a van going past now, but it was incredibly busy half an hour ago with people and traffic, and apart from the odd person now, it's really quietened down.
Well, I thought that looking at this second camera is that a lot of people, when public holiday falls on a Monday, take the rest of the week off.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what's happened today.
Yeah, I expect it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, there's a man coming to the pub, I think, with lots of things.
He'll be lucky. I'm not letting anybody in until Deck gets here.
Right. I will head off then. And if there's a parking space, I will come and wave at you.
Lovely. Yeah, look forward to that, Susie. Lovely to meet you, Susie.
And you too. Lovely to hear about the University of Innovations. Yeah.
Have a great day.
Have a great day, both. Bye.
Okay. Bye, Susie.
Bye.
Right, Mark. I have to say that I'm almost doing nothing but thinking about this damn university and what sort of things that we can do and what the logistics would be and so on and so forth. It's a very exciting project. Very exciting project.
Everybody, I think you've said this, Keith. Everybody that I talk to about it says it's a great idea and it's exactly what we need. And isn't it interesting? Because I've not even thought about the veterinary side of things. But just having that discussion there with Susie showed another potential area that we could get. There's no reason why we couldn't do, certainly, like as you said, paramedical type veterinary nursing. The practicalities of that would be something that we could do quite easily.
Well, people who are ideas people flourish from chats. I mean, we just happen to be on the air together, and this has come up. But I'm sure that we'll talk about all sorts of things. I've had all sorts of ideas, and I'm really excited. I keep on going back to as a very young boy. I couldn't have been any more than 10 or 11, being taken to the apprenticeship system at Rubery Owen, who are a very big engineering company in the Midlands, and it stuck in my mind. Here these chaps doing practical stuff, but then they would go off to school and take a couple of days there. I always thought it was a very good idea, and I had I was away in Canada when they canned it, and when I came back, it wasn't something in the front of my my mind. But it's very sad that it was done away with. I mean, I really very sad about that. But what's impressing me, Mark, although knowing you, I should expect it, is you are marching ahead at a great rate of knots. Now, I have Harry Atherton, who lives in Normandy. He's as fascinating a character as you are. No, stay there, because I'd like you to meet Harry.
Right.
And I before he comes on, I should tell you that he restored 5 castles in France and almost sold one to Michael Jackson.
Wow. Thriller.
Good morning, Harry.
Good morning, Keith. Good morning.
This is Dr. Professor Mark Mabey, whom I've known not as long as I've known you, but I've known him for a long time. And since Philip couldn't make it this morning, I thought a little 15-minute chat with you and Mark would be stimulating.
Very good. Well, the name says something to me. Mark must have made his mark somewhere.
Mark.
Because the name is familiar to me. So, in what field of endeavour, Mark, are you?
So I'm actually a medical microbiologist by training. So,
okay,
I've sort of done different things within the education sort of sphere. In fact, I met Keith back in, I think, 2011 or 2012. We were working for a private university, private college in Notting Hill. A time when you could have a lot of fun, Harry. You know, everything's so serious now. You know, but we had a lot of fun, didn't we, Keith?
No, we did.
Coming up with wild ideas, particularly down the Prince Albert pub. I remember really well.
Okay.
Over a couple of glasses of wine, Harry. You know, it all went really well after a couple of wines.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's great. I always remember you take directions when you go anywhere by pubs, don't you, in England?
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Turned right at the Black Horse and left at the White Swan.
Absolutely. It's interesting because I live in Stoke-on-Trent, sort of.
Okay.
And it is absolutely one of the capitals for pubs. Although quite a few have shut down. You're absolutely right. What you're saying, Harry. People say, "Oh, you know, we go up Longton Dock, and if you go to the Dog and Partridge, turn right at the Dog and Partridge, go down there, and turn left at the White Lion." And you're right. That's how people navigate around it.
But the sad thing I understand is that there's Britain has lost a quarter of its pubs in the past few years. And which means that people will not be able to get directions. They'll be getting totally lost.
It's like we're walking around in circles, Harry.
Indeed. Yes, from a few remaining pubs.
Right. I think there's one pub shutting a day.
Every day. That's very sad. What do you feel is the reason for that? Is it because of the people less drinking, driving laws, or is it cost of beer? Somebody once told me it's gone too high now. It's become the drink of the wealthy people.
It's interesting. I've said this loads of times, but I went to university with 2 friends, one called Jim, one called Tim. They were both economists, and actually Tim, his dad died in his final year and left him some money, and he bought a pub in Ancoats in Manchester. And he's actually Tim Martin, who owns, I don't know if you've heard of Wetherspoons Pubs. It's a very big, they've got 800 pubs he owns now. But his idea when he set this up, which was 50 years ago, was that he said, I'm going to buy a pub, I'm going to sell beer at half the price of the other pubs, and I'm just going to sell gin, vodka, whiskey at half price. And his pubs were rammed. And it's exactly the same now. He's got a Wetherspoons pub in Stoke-on-Trent. It's rammed from 8 in the morning till 1 till 8 in the morning. It opens,
Mhm.
and it shuts at 1 a.m. and it's full all day. And there
Wow.
are other pubs, so you can get a pint of bitter for £2.50. A glass of red wine, large glass of red wine for £3. Whereas if you go to the pub just down the road, it's £6 for a large glass of red wine. So,
Well, is that an indication then that the profit margin on the sale of alcoholic drinks is far too high, and
Yeah.
it is artificially maintained at that level by the breweries, perhaps, who bought up all the pubs?
absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely,
Yeah.
you're totally right. That's absolutely right.
Mhm.
I think that what's happened is the breweries bring in landlords, and as soon as they start to get profitable, they rent up. They end up, if they're going to put the rent up, they end up putting the price of the beer up. So you're absolutely right. It's a monopoly. And what Wetherspoons has done, it's got such a foothold with 800 pubs. It buys beer from different. So the one that I go to has got 6 different ales that come from different parts of the country, Somerset and whatever, and they determine that. But it is a sad state of affairs. In fact, I went to Euston Station a couple of months ago, and the train was delayed. All the bloody trains here, Harry, are nightmare. I know perhaps in France it's different, but they're nightmare. Anyway, it was cancelled, and so I went upstairs to the bar in the station and said to the guy, "Could I have a large glass of Merlot?" So he poured this glass of Merlot. There were no prices up, and now people don't say the price of things over here. They just sort of show you the machine that you tap your card onto, and I looked, and it was £12. £12 for one glass of wine. And I said to him, "I don't want the bottle. I just want the glass." And I said, "I don't want it." He said, "But I've already poured it." I said, "I'm not paying £12 for a glass of wine." I literally went from there to the other side of the station where there's a supermarket, and I bought a bottle of wine for £4.50.
Yeah, ridiculous. Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, just crazy.
And I would imagine with the breweries too that when they buy up the pubs, they simply put a manager in who is a paid employee, and he's got no sense of shared identity with his establishment. He's simply there as somebody to pull the points and establishes a rapport. His rapport is more important with his boss than it is with the client in front of him, I would imagine.
Yeah. That's the beauty of somebody like Declan, who takes his job very, very seriously.
Yeah.
Anyway, the other very successful pub we have in Lewes is called the Brewers Arms, and it is privately owned. The family own it.
Okay. And is yours owned by the brewery then? The one, the Black Horse, is that owned by the brewery?
That's owned by a brewery. Declan is a tenant, I believe. Yeah.
Sure. Because you do have a fairly enlightened brewery management, I think, in Lewes, do you not? With the
it is a pub town.
Yeah, pub town. It's not one of these pub organizations which is simply quoted on the stock exchange and everything is judged by the
Well, of course. I mean, you touch on an interesting point there, because the Harvey's beer is brewed
Harvey's, yes, that's right. Yeah,
the brewery started in 1750, I think, and it's been going ever since. Now, in 1850 or so, there were 17 breweries and 63 pubs. But it was a bit like lockdown. The reason being is that the water was poisonous. So everybody drank beer. You had to go to the pub to get a drink. Can I have a drink of water? Yes, go and get some beer.
I think that's what Thames Water is doing to us now. Thames Water,
that's right. Yeah.
Thames Water's efforts should be improving the sale of beer.
One of the books that I've written is on business journalism, and I use Harvey's as a classic example of where they have never yet bought an ad. They use sponsorships and so on, but basically their marketing is being part of the community.
Mhm.
You come to Lewes and try saying anything nasty about a Harvey's beer, and you're immediately barred.
Yeah, right, yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
that's a good show. 1750, you say for Harvey's. I
Yeah.
always Guinness. Well, they predate Guinness. Guinness is 1759. I'm
Yeah.
cheating there because it's a big sign in front of the Guinness entrance.
Yeah.
1759. Yeah.
Well, I think that when they first came down from London, they were vintners, and beer was of secondary importance. But they found that they'd located their brewery on a natural spring, and they still use the same water today that they used then.
Mhm.
Those bubbles up through the ground. But it's very well managed.
Mhm.
And in fact, Miles Jenner, who is the chief brewer and CEO, was I don't know what they call them, but the liveries in London. There was a brewery livery, and he was a chairman or president or whatever of it, and in fact entertained the royal family there.
Mhm. Okay. Mhm. So
Yeah, so-
my brother actually was a brewer. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but he has spent a career in brewing,
wow.
and he started off. He went to university in Cambridge, and he then worked for a number of years at the British Brewing Research Establishment in Redhill,
Redhill, yeah.
in Surrey, and then he went on into brewing proper in different parts of the world. And so I've been fairly close to that in one sense, having a brother who was in the trade. So quite a remarkable business, I think, to be in. I just wonder how long beer goes back in history. I suppose
Yeah.
in biblical terms and even before.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
It's interesting that you talk about going back in beer, because from what I understand is the ancient Brits had a form of beer that they and that they've actually discovered sort of little bits and pieces and wooden and clay and that sort of thing when they excavated places.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So yes, an ancient. But anyway, Harry, let's get on to something else, because you mentioned there Cambridge University, and I just realised that I, like millions of others, were fixed on the television screen on was it Saturday or Sunday to watch the Oxford and Cambridge boat race.
Yes,
which goes back many years.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, and Cambridge again came out on top. I mean, I think over the years, they've dominated. They've won far more times than Oxford. But the Light Blues are quite known for that. It's something I've never been into, rowing myself. And even though I was born in a small fishing village where most of my school chums were from fishing families and went to sea, but I've never been one for getting out on the ocean too much. I certainly not rowing as a sport, but it's an amazing thing. I did read that the lead rower, stroke or whatever he's called, the Cambridge side collapsed at the end of before the end of the race.
Yes, he did. They carried him for the last sort of quarter mile or so. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
They had excuse me. It transpired that it goes on to what you said, Harry. It's Thames Water again, and a number of them, particularly a couple in the Oxford rowing team, picked up E. coli poisoning from the river.
That's amazing.
They've been practicing on the splashing of the water, and they've taken some of it in. And it shows how polluted the Thames is around that particular area. the guy was saying, one of the guys saying, I'm not using this as an excuse at all because Cambridge won fair and square. He said, but 3 of us have been up all night being sick. And we'd all picked up this E. coli infection from the Thames. And they were saying that normally the winning team would capsize and they'd all go in the water and things.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you noticed this year they didn't do that for the simple reason that the river's so polluted.
Yeah.
They didn't all go in the water, which they normally would do. It's a pretty sad state of affairs, really.
Well, it is, and because I remember reading a few years back that the rivers in Britain had been cleaned up. There'd been tremendous progress made in cleaning up the rivers. Is this a retrograde step that's happened? Has Thames Water failed to keep up the standards that were being set, I would think, 20, 30 years ago?
Yes.
There was a big cleanup in Britain.
It's a scandal at the moment, Harry, is that more companies, and not just the water companies, but factories and so on, are pumping in sewage into the sea, into our rivers, into our lakes at an unprecedented rate.
Amazing. I thought all that had been ended years ago, and there were proper sewage plants which were purifying waste and problem solved, but obviously not.
I think
I remember when you and I were in Vancouver together, which was many years ago, and I'd started working for a radio station, doing a story about fish coming into the upper reaches of the Thames for the first time. So the cleanup started then. It also is when smog started to disappear as well. But certainly we don't seem to have benefited in modern times from that.
Well, I don't know what it's like where you are in France, Harry, but the rainfall, the other thing that has changed a lot, particularly in the past year, has been the amount of rain that we've had. Last in February, we had double the rainfall from the previous February. And they're saying quite a lot of that is runoff from the fields because there's so much additional water that many of the rivers now are overflowing. And actually, you are right. That many of them have got fantastic sewage treatment works, but they've been overrun by the amount of rain that we're having that's going into the rivers. And certainly, there was a guy on the television yesterday, somewhere up in York, who was saying that he couldn't rent out his boats or anything over the Easter holidays because the river was so high that they couldn't actually get the boats through the little tunnels. So I think it's a bit of a combination, but it certainly the number of people now that are getting ill from lots of people like swimming in rivers that are getting ill from it, and the government have been warning people not to swim in rivers, which is a sad state of affairs, really.
Indeed. Well, here in Normandy, which we're quite well known for our level of precipitation in Normandy, it's a wet region of France by comparison to many others, and so we have had a little bit more than our usual share of rainfall, both historically and seasonally this year. We're going through a period right now where there's fairly heavy rain almost every day. And then sunshine, of course, it alternates. So I don't know. I mean, is world rainfall increasing? We're told that the levels of the ocean are increasing because of the melting of the polar ice caps, and that gets us into the tricky subject of climate change, which I'm got some fairly old-fashioned views on. But then again, I wouldn't want to get into an argument with the experts. I don't consider myself an expert, but I do believe that the world weather pattern has fluctuated historically throughout time.
I agree.
Well, what fascinates viewers, Harry, is your very clear and concise alternate view, if you like, of what Britain is all about now. So don't be afraid to get into an argument with anybody.
Well, I did see a note from you, Keith, which was talking about conservatism and the change in what being a conservative meant in Britain. Was that a subject that you were hoping we would open up on today, or?
Well, I actually put that out on the local site next door, which is really a gossip site, but nonetheless, a lot of people look at it, and it was really because you raised that issue.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's an issue in which I have fairly strong views, and I would sorry.
If we stay with boats and water, is of course we just reached 5,000 boat people for the first quarter,
mm-hmm.
And that is a record, despite Rwanda and paying the French to sort things out over there and so on and so forth. Nothing is working. And it did seem to me that this is one area where the Conservatives say one thing and do another. So that might be a topic that you have a view on.
Well, I think the illegal boat people is a little bit of a red herring. That requires obviously more intense policing, more cooperation from the French authorities, who are being paid handsomely to try and control things this side. But it's a red herring insofar as it camouflages the reality of legal immigration. The standards have been set so low to bring in, one imagines, cheap labor, or to simply inflate the GNP of Britain's economy at the expense of local people, I might point out, that illegal immigration is not really relevant in the bigger scheme of things. Legal immigration is the big danger. Why are we bringing the equivalent number of people as the city of Birmingham into Britain every year? That's officially illegally. It seems to me to be crazy, and we're changing the demographic makeup of the nation to a point where white Anglo-Saxon males are becoming, I won't say a minority, but becoming almost a forgotten species. But we're bored. You see, the problem is that this whole debate about immigration, you skirt the issues of racism, and nobody wants to be a racist. I mean, we simply want to retain, I think, the traditional ethnic values of the nation of which we were once part. I got my tongue in my cheek there because I've lived most of my life outside of Britain and chosen. But you when you leave Britain physically, which traditionally many Brits have done throughout history, it doesn't mean that you leave that you take your heart with you. You still remain very much a product of where you come from, and you take your values with you. Now, those values are influenced by other values to which you're exposed. But the values to which England is now exposed are changing so dramatically that people like myself, when we go back, we don't recognize the place. And when we read about people's attitudes to major issues, and this again takes us full circle to the current Conservative Party, which the Parliamentary Conservative Party, which hardly merits the name Conservatives. They simply seem to espouse a series of ersatz, pseudo-socialist philosophy. I don't know. I mean, the true conservatives in Britain would seem to be quite frustrated, and they're moving to organizations called like Reform. But how many people in Reform are actually being drawn from the Red Wall constituencies? In other words, they're not really conservatives either. They're true Brits of left-wing philosophical in a political thought, but they too believe in trying to retain their concept of Britain, which is being eroded. And again, going full circle, if you're bringing in close to 1 million people a year legally, you're totally changing the face and body of the nation. I just can't see how it can last, and I wonder if we've even gone beyond the tipping point now to recover. There's so many people who do not feel British anymore. In fact, feeling British seems to be anachronistic amongst a certain class of people. Amongst the young people, the educated people, it seems no longer fashionable to believe in your country. And I was going to say a country and its values, but how would you define British values anymore? They're certainly not the values that we espoused when we were kids, because that's going back a long time. We're before the war for me, but it's a tough one to handle, and it becomes a particularly difficult nation to manage. And I don't think either of the major parties in Britain have got the capacity or the I won't say the intellectual breadth, but the emotional breadth to put the nation back on track again. And which track? Which track do the people want to be on? They just want an easier life. They want somebody else to come in and do the work. And while most of them simply sit back and enjoy the social benefits of life. I don't know how many million people now are living off welfare in Britain. I have heard figures varying between 4 and 9 million.
Yep.
A nation can't possibly survive if it continues to be, I don't know what. How about a polite expression, sucking off the hind tit?
I actually totally agree with you, Harry, 100%. And actually, I read some figures that there are currently nearly 7 million people on this system called Universal Credit, which is there, and there's also something called PIP, personal. Another personal allowance, and there's about 4 million on that, and that's why the country is nearly bankrupt. But you're absolutely right. It is very challenging or very difficult to know which party to vote for, because they're all the same.
Indeed.
The Labour Party are not different like they used to be. I'm not harping back to Maggie Thatcher's days, but I don't know, up here that she didn't do particularly wonderful things for the miners. But you knew where you stood then, and we did have proper values. And although she was the Iron Lady, I really thought she was fantastic.
Well, all people had values. I mean, I think the values of the socialist values were respected and needed to be respected. That there was a need for a political force to ensure that one part of the society wasn't exploited by another. And the birth of the unions is a very important thing, and the initial work they did, so terribly important to prevent exploitation and what have you. So socialist values are very important, and people should have those. People, I think Churchill was it who said that he who isn't a socialist at 20 hasn't got a heart, and he who isn't a conservative at 30 hasn't got a head. Quite right. So these values should be compensatory. They should balance each other out. So it's not to say anybody's right or wrong, because the way society works, relationships work, you get imbalances created all the time. You've got to have a mechanism to put them back on an even keel. So it wouldn't do if we were all right wing or all left wing. We've got to keep these counter forces that prevail, which are rooted in the values that they espouse. So I'm all for a strong Labour Party and a strong Conservative Party. But you can't tell the difference between the two. You've got this extreme Labour politician whose name I believe is Michael Gove, Labour politician. Can you imagine somebody pushing for a war against landlords, against the rich, when the average landlord in England isn't some wealthy, evil person who owns thousands of properties? The average number of properties owned by a landlord is a little over one property per landlord. In other words, it's people who've decided to work hard, saved a bit of money, instead of putting it into a bank account, they put it into a second property, and they hope to, by dint of the hard work that has allowed them to do that, they want to try and enhance their station, their economic station in life. And now they're penalized because they're rich. Well, they're not rich at all. I mean, this is a war on the pseudo-rich, simply to gain, I suppose, the votes of the people who are jealous of anybody who's got more than they've got. And that man is Michael Gove. He's no more a conservative than I. Oh, well, I'm going to say something rude there.
Go on.
And died in the wool socialist. Funny little man. Funny little man. I mean, there you go. And
that's very true. Yeah.
He's typical of the modern conservative. They're not conservatives. They are trying to be socialists, and very successful they are at it. And if they're trying to win socialist votes, I mean, they're wasting their time, because the core of socialist votes and the core of conservative votes, it's embedded in the psyche ever since from early on in a person's life. So you're only talking about a fringe number of votes, the swing votes, and they're trying to win that. Well, they're certainly not going to do it, and and certainly they're destroying their traditional reputation for good management. They're extremely poor management, as I can see. I can't see anybody voting conservative for the next couple of generations, quite frankly.
No, I agree. Yeah, I agree.
And I would normally espouse that kind of good management, reward for hard work, decency, values. I would normally go along with that particular brand of political thought. But I couldn't vote Conservative anymore. Not for the Conservative Parliamentary Conservative Party. No. I could be a member of the Conservative school of thought, but certainly not the Conservative. The sooner that mess is chased out of Westminster, the better, in my opinion. But and speaking as a conservative, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, it's a little bit harsh, I know, but
that was good.
I chose Michael Gove as a typical example. He's a good example.
Yeah.
Well, it might interest you to know, Harry, that on this app Nextdoor, which has a lot of sensible and intelligent comment, I put that because you raised it last week or the week before, I put it up, just a one-liner. Have conservatives, the present conservatives, lost conservative principles? And as of this morning, it has had 1,000 people tap into it and read it. So it is on a lot of people's minds.
That's very good.
I think it's necessary. And another figure that sticks in my mind is that I believe in Britain, 70% of the income taxes are paid by 10% of the people. Shouldn't everybody, however little they earn, pay some symbolic form of income tax, even if it's 1 penny? There should be, why should 70 or more percent of the people be paying for everybody else?
Yeah,
business doesn't work that way, and running a country is a business. Yeah.
Well, I had a rant a few weeks ago actually with Melissa, who's over in the States, saying that I retired a month ago, and I was paying 40% income tax, paid that for most probably about 15 years now, and I've got my private pension, and God forbid my private pension's being taxed as well. So not only was I paying 40% tax, but I'm now paying 40% tax on my pension, my private pension, and I can't get my state pension until I'm 66 and a half, and I'm 64. So you're absolutely right, Harry. It's madness, and I see people that, you know, down at my local pub in their 30s, they've never worked in their lives.
Well, in order to pay for something, you have to generate wealth. And an individual or a nation who no longer generate wealth, their standard of living, the quality of life will drop. And so we should encourage people to generate wealth. Well, we actually discourage it now. We consider it morally wrong, and we then tax them to punish them for having done that. And we pass laws that will take the money away from them. How can people get a share of wealth if you're reducing the actual creation of wealth?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's part of the problem, I think, is that the present generation, as Eden would have said, you've never had it so good. I've never had it so good, and now they're finding that it's not as good as it was, and they naturally get upset. People never like going backwards in what the life, if you like, hands out to them. I once, when I was in Hong Kong, I once chatted to a Chinese. At that time, when the official government policy was moving from bicycles to cars, and this chap had got a motorbike. I said, "Would you ever go back to having a bicycle instead of a motorbike?" And he said, "Under no circumstances." In other words, the moment you encourage people to move a notch up, they're never going to go back, whether the country or they personally can afford it or not.
Well, this is it, and so if you prevent people from moving forward to improving their life, and not at the exploitation of others, but simply by dint of their own hard work, there's no encouragement to do that anymore. The incentive is gone, and when you spend money on social programs simply as a means of buying votes, I feel that it's self-defeating, and both of the major political parties in Britain follow that philosophy. The Conservatives were no longer Conservatives anyway; they're socialist in their attitude, and then I think we're reaching a point of no return. How Britain will get through this issue, I'm not at all sure.
No, I'm not either. It is. I think we're in a difficult position because we open up the papers every day to find the government giving in to. I mean, I just don't see how any government and a democracy as it's constituted at the moment can effectively govern. I mean, Sunak does one thing, and the House of Lords goes against him. It's another, and the judges go against him. Whether he wants to be a conservative or not, he can't do anything, make no movement whatsoever, because they immediately fold when somebody says boo.
Well, this is it, and the way the judiciary is, their hands are tied now because we still have most of the European laws on the books. We supposedly left Europe with Brexit, but now we're still governed by many of these European laws, and we haven't freed ourselves. We haven't benefited from the advantages of Brexit. And the other side of the coin, of course, is the people who govern themselves cannot control the machine of government, the civil service, or the semi-governmental bodies, the quangos, are laws unto themselves. Yeah. A minister cannot control his or her ministry anymore. They can say what they want to do, but there'll be people in this huge amorphous mass, the blob as it's known, who decide whether or not to apply the minister's wishes. I mean, they've got to clean that mess out for a start. And that mess, incidentally, increasing by some huge, some exponential rate of about 40 or 50,000 more civil servants per year or something silly. I'm not sure whether that's true, but I did read some amazing figures as to how many more people in salaries that you wouldn't believe. I mean,
yes, absolutely.
National Health Service. I mean, hiring hundreds of people at over £100,000 a year when they need nurses and doctors and people to actually deal with patients.
Yeah.
So it's the system that itself that has ground to a halt. And if you are a minister or a person trying to run the government, you can't, because your hands are tied. You no longer have the authority, the power to do it. It's a little bit like they tell the story of an aircraft carrier, when from the captain saying that he wants to change the direction of the boat and go in the opposite direction. By the time the boat turns round, it's gone on 5 miles.
Yes.
It's a little bit like government management. You in one term as minister, you can't really influence the course that your department will take and apply some of the policies which you may feel are the remedial steps that you need to take. So government itself has ground to a halt.
Yes, I mean, that's absolutely. And the other element is backbenchers are not subject to the discipline that they used to be in Parliament. I mean, Theresa May, her government was government by the tail wagging the dog towards the end. And I mean, it was absolutely outrageous.
Mm-hmm. Well, don't talk to me about Theresa May. I mean, she is, if there's one person responsible for the economic decline, it's Theresa May with this stupid net zero ingrained in the Constitution for 2050. I can't imagine anything more silly than that. But anyway, I don't think it'll happen. I think that poverty will get in the way and people will insist on putting back these false targets, and when the quality of life goes through the floor as it is now, I think we'll get rid of this net zero stupidity. But then again, it's a personal opinion, but it's a personal opinion which I believe is shared by many people, and yet still the government does not listen to the people. Neither party listens to their constituents. That once they get into elected, they become a power unto themselves and make decisions which are totally at odds with what the people want.
Yes,
and, it's happened to
not even decisions with consensus amongst themselves.
Not at all. And what the Conservatives have done to themselves now, the Socialists are going to do it to themselves in equally quick order. I have no faith in the present system of government in Britain.
Actually, I mean, you touched sort in my views. I used to say, and I haven't said it recently, and I will start saying it again, there are 650 MPs in the House of Commons, and I wouldn't give you tuppence for any of them. I'm sure that there are a few people who are of worth and of substance, but most of them are there because of their ratios. You must have so many women. You must have so many black people. You must have so many gay people. Well, if they're there for those reasons, then they're not bringing any merit whatsoever. There is nothing that they bring to the party. So they don't disqualify themselves. What they do is that they bring very strange views to very serious matters.
Indeed, they do. And of course, the big question that everybody asks is, with all of the clever people that exist in every country, in Britain being no exception, we've got some very, very clever people in Britain. Why don't they run for Parliament? Well, Well, I mean, they're clever enough to know that's the last thing that they want to do. They go into some other form of endeavor, human endeavor. They're not going to become politicians because it's a dead end street. They make a bit of money, they get their name in the newspaper, but in terms of expressing their intellectual capacity, they can't. They're hamstrung. They're unable to change the direction of the ship, and so they stay away from politics. So we deny ourselves the best and brightest, and we have second-rate politicians by and large.
I would lay that some of that anyway to the two major parties, who actually very carefully select people that will support what they're doing at the moment. And if you're not part of the major parties when you stand in an election, you get 200 votes and having spent all your life savings.
Yeah. And so now we're facing a situation. Well, I'm not, because I don't live in Britain anymore. But if I were and I had to vote between somebody like Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer, what an amazing choice!
Yes,
I mean, and you know, both of them couldn't find their own backside with both hands in broad daylight. I just couldn't. I just cannot see it, that we've got such second-rate people, and these people, Rishi Sunak, Suella Braverman, bright kid, I suppose, busy debating on how many other people can come in from some forgotten place on the planet. I mean, is that a racist statement?
Not at all.
If you attach color to it, it could be, but it's reality.
Yes.
And they're deciding what Britain should look like 5, 10, 15, 20 years, 20 years time.
Yeah. Well, what's the situation in France, Harry?
Absolutely the same.
Is it? Yeah.
Absolutely the same. In fact, the French nation is being diluted at an almost greater rate than, and of course, the huge overlap in France is we've got many of the immigrants in France are bringing with them very strong religious beliefs, so France will be the native French will be outnumbered, literally in mathematical terms, by 2050. So does that mean that France will cease to exist? No, but it means that France as we know it will cease to exist. And so massive changes going on. But does that matter? Because we've got this Euro focus, as if the old world, Europe was important. And in fact, the future of the world is somewhere in the middle of the South China Sea, as far as I can see. Putin's going to get his way in Europe. The Europeans will not, both as governments and as young people, will not fight to make the effort to retain their traditions. I think Europe is already a spent force. So should we be really worrying? It's cyclical change has always happened. The Roman Empire and other empires before it have disappeared. And our world, I think, our days are not only not, they're over.
Declan's here to say hello to you, Harry.
Oh, yes, hi, Declan. Good to see you. Good man.
So you've given us the good weather today.
Yes.
Is it okay with you?
What's that? If
The
you
weather?
The weather.
Yeah,
Well, it's a bit grey, but it's not raining. It's quite pleasant. It looks like I can see sunshine in your part of the world through the window.
Yeah, we've got a lot of rain coming in. Well, some
Oh
rain.
yeah. We've been having a lot of rain as well. But Normandy is, as I was saying earlier, is quite well known for heavy rainfall at different times of the year. But weather in Normandy is usually pretty good if you take it on an annual basis. It's not a bad place to live. very similar, in fact, to what you have in the south of England.
I could imagine so. We're not far away, really.
We're not far away from each other.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right, I'll leave you to carry on.
Okay.
Have a good chat, guys.
Thank you. Yes, you said something there that triggered a question in my mind. And,
about Europe. Europe stays unnumbered. Does Europe still exist?
Yes. I wonder whether, in fact, we are seeing signs that the dictator or dictatorships or authoritarian regimes actually are beginning to rise in authority and power.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I think they are. But they always have existed, of course, and when they do exist, they do force free-thinking nations to react and come together. But in this particular case, we've got the threat of Russia in Europe, and it's a very real threat because if he decided not to stop at the Ukrainian border, he could actually walk right through quite easily. I mean, there's nobody really in a position to oppose him. And with the Americans becoming more isolationist, I do see some major changes happening in Europe, happening actually at the moment. So I don't see much future for Europe. And having Europe grouped together in this so-called European community, the European Union, we see just how fragmented that is. And if Britain gets back in there, my gosh, I think it would be the end of it would the end of Britain. And then I think we're seeing the end of Europe. I don't see how we can recover from the current situation we're in. I really don't.
No, I must say that I wonder whether historically we've been through, not necessarily this country, but various nations have recovered. I mean, no comparison of size, but I think about Vietnam, which went into a dreadful situation where you would have said at the end of the Vietnam War, my golly, they're going to just stay small villages and nothing will happen. And look at it now; it's beginning to thrive as an industrial leader almost. I was fascinated when I was in Washington last to see how many shops and stores, particularly the selling specialist foods, were Vietnamese.
Indeed, and one of the interesting, because we lived through Vietnam and all its traumas, the Vietnam War, and yet watching old films of that now and listening to the victorious Vietnamese once the Americans were chased out, you get very few of them vaunting their communist philosophy. They're actually speaking in nationalistic terms. They were proud of their nation to get their nation's independence back. I think communism was simply a vehicle to them, but it wasn't ideological. They truly were fighting for the freedom of their nation, and so they are a young nation. They are now expressing themselves, as you say, commercially, establishing their place in the world, just like Britain did hundreds of years ago. But can you see that happening in Britain now? Can you see these millions of young men who wouldn't even fight for their country, never mind work for their country? I just cannot see it. It's cyclical. And
the reason I use it as an example, though, is just sometimes things do work in cycles. Mm-hmm. And when you think that somebody is down and out, Well, I suppose really the Weimar Republic was that, wasn't it? I mean, inflation was rampant and so on, and suddenly, not a nice way to go, but Hitler came to power on the basis that I will turn this around, but I'm not going to use the ordinary rules. I mean, do you think that that's a danger for Britain?
I don't think there's a particular danger of a dictatorship taking over in Europe. I think the fiber of the individual nations is gone, and you can't create an artificial nationality, which we call a European, at a time when the those values, those beliefs are in decline. It has to be resurgent. A difficult comparison with what happened at the end of the First World War, the Weimar Republic, because the Germans generally didn't feel they'd been beaten. They felt that they'd been betrayed. The Weimar Republic experiment, which was intended to do good, just was too loosely thrown together to really survive against the forces at play. So when Hitler came to power, and it was purely chance that it was Hitler, there was many other people throwing their hat in the ring to become authoritarian figures in Germany. It's simply that Hitler emerged from the bunch, and we don't know the rest of the story. But it was from Hitler's rise, or the rise of whoever else it would have been, was just simply that grew out of weakness. But Germany was still a very strong nation at that point. Even after the First World War, it was still a very strong nation that believed in itself. If there's a problem with Germany today, that it has lost that self-belief. They've become pacifists. They're dominated by the left wing, green thinking, and so I don't think they're really any longer a force to be reckoned with, Germany. I don't think Europe is a force to be reckoned with any longer.
I think you're right.
Is that a bad thing? It's bad for the Europeans, but yeah. It's good for whoever is going to come out of the pile and be the future world leaders.
Yes,
certainly.
Who, in your opinion, is in the ascendant at the moment?
India, for sure. Russia, even though it's going to cause a lot of problems in the near-term future, is a spent force. China, in my opinion, has peaked. They will continue to grow commercially, but they have a serious demographic problem. So I don't think China will reach the ultimate point of domination that they were aiming for. India, I still think, is the one with the largest potential to dominate the world in the next couple of 100 years. It's a tough one. I don't think I'm qualified to comment on that, but I can see the weaknesses of the Chinese system and the obvious weakness of the Russian system, and the collectivities that are forming. I don't see them coming to any great consequence. No, I'd put my money on India, probably. Oh, my goodness, I'm forgetting a big one there, Africa. I think there's a huge potential in Africa, both in terms of its population. It's one of the few areas of the world where the population is still increasing, and resources, extremely strong in resources. If Africa gets its act together, that too will be an amazing force over the next 200 to 300 years.
You don't think that some of the very, very wealthy countries, small though they be, such as Saudi Arabia, could amass power to dominate?
Well, while fossil fuels are king, then they have the natural petroleum resources, but they're even realizing themselves that they have to diversify to survive. And so no, I think they're a flash in the pan. I don't think they'll be around in 50 years' time. Certainly not in 100 years' time.
Let me ask you this then, because it's controversial. Do you think, everybody says that fossil fuels have had their day and so on and so forth, and yet almost every industrial nation has returned, having laid great plans to do away with them, is now scurrying back to increase both utilization and exploration.
Well, the pursuit of net zero has favored wind and solar to an excessive degree, and the realization is that cannot be achieved now. Any thinking person realizes that is an impossibility to have a steady energy supply with wind and solar. So it's going to have to be supported, increasingly supported by fossil fuels, notably gas, obviously. Gas is a little bit more politically acceptable than petroleum, but of course the other question which comes to mind, and particularly applicable to Britain, it's just how long will they be able to impede what little progress is left in the North Sea, and how long will they be able to prevent fracking in Britain? The enormous energy revival of the United States, which has become a net exporter of fossil fuels and liquid gases, liquid gas now, it shows where they can go economically. And Britain was going to have to follow the same route, whether the little old ladies in Lancashire believe it or not. It's going to happen. Fracking will have to happen to keep the lights on, and the realization. So there's another couple of 100 years left in fossil fuel, I think, and they'll come back in a fairly big way, realistically. Otherwise, we'll be freezing in our homes and eating cold meals. So, and this nonsense of electric cars, of course, which will accelerate that. If there's one good side to electric cars, it will push the Western world into realizing that electric cars are putting too much of a strain on production of energy, and therefore they'll take a step back from them. I cannot think of anything more dangerous than trying to impose electric cars on the world when there isn't a sufficient supply of electricity to make them work.
Yeah.
It's so simple to my mind. I cannot see it.
I agree with you, Harry. And actually, strangely enough, I've noticed that all the thrust of just 12 months ago the steam has gone out of it. If that's not a silly thing to say about electricity, is the steam has gone out of it. But there isn't the impetus from either manufacturers or governments anymore. Oh yes, they pay lip service to it, but that's what it is, lip service.
Absolutely. Well, who in their right mind would buy an electric car without subsidies and without all of the things that are going with it? It's I just can't see it. I just truly cannot see it. And you can't legislate morality. It's got to come from the individual. And if they want to pollute less, then they need to invent means of reducing pollution, which they had done with fossil fuels. The emissions that and the petroleum cars and diesel cars have been reduced to such a low level. I mean, it's an amazing scientific achievement, and yet the emissions being produced by the production of electricity in different parts of the world, we've simply moved the carbon footprint from the old world to the new. It's increasing pollution. I just cannot see it. I just cannot see it. But economically, it will not work.
Well, I have a tendency to agree with you, not least of which is driving into a petrol station and having either yourself or somebody put a nozzle and glug, glug, glug. But there's a chap just along the road from here. We're looking one way. If you look the other, there's a chap who's got a car, and he's always got the plug into a wall socket. And he's got one of those little things so that people like myself in my scooter don't run over his cable. But he's few and far between, and I can't see him being very enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, well, there you go. There you go. Anyway, it's rather sad to talk in these terms because I think there are other great promises that the world has, and there are other great possibilities that Europe has to fade away gracefully. It doesn't have to be one abrupt cataclysmic event. So I feel that some of the things I've said, just reviewing my thoughts here, that a little bit negative, and I'd like to be more positive, because I'm basically a positive thinker. It's just simply that I think we're heading down the wrong track at the moment with so many factors.
Well, I think if you've got a sense of realism that things aren't working at the moment, then that can be a driver for new thinking and to reverse the policy. But I think one of the things that you do particularly, and you do with Philip, is you actually highlight some of the things that are wrong, but that our leaders tend to accept. And I said to Susie this morning, I went to, I still haven't seen my doctor, and I went and while I was waiting, the receptionist opened up, and I said, this system isn't working, is it? It is in here, she said. And what they've done is that the people who are working in it think that it is working because they bought into it, and they're not aware. They have no concept that it's their own little parameters, and I think that is true of government at the moment. Is they have bought into their policies that they are not aware that they're not working, and it's going to need something cataclysmic or critics such as you or us to start them saying, hang on, should we be thinking in a different way?
Well, that's a very good point, because if you listen to the debate that's happening in Parliament, you don't find people expressing the kinds of views that we're expressing now. Now, we may well be wrong. These are our individual views, and we're not the ultimate source of wisdom, far from it. But these points of views are not being expressed in Parliament. They're not open to debate. One wonders, even at the committee level, are they open to debate?
Yeah.
Because everything being politically correct, there's some subjects you've got to steer clear of.
That's right. I mean, it's easy for the leadership to control, isn't it? Don't talk about this, don't talk about that. And if you do, you'll be sneered at.
Yeah.
I mean, I said to Mark maybe a little earlier, I'm a meritocrat, and I was in a debate. Well, it's a couple of years or so ago now, but I expressed this view that I would like to see people who have the ability to do things, particularly in Parliament. And one of the group who until then had appeared to be very intelligent actually sneered and said, "Oh, you're a meritocrat." We're too ready to put people down for what they're thinking. We are not encouraging new thought or different.
We're not only put people down, but we're legislating the way that people think.
Exactly.
What you're allowed to think. There's thought control. I mean, George Orwell must be turning in his grave if he were to hear about the new laws being passed in Scotland, for instance.
Yes.
It is truly mind-boggling. Thank heavens this bright young lady there, what's her name, Rowling, J.K. Rowling, is resisting it, and God bless the woman. I mean, and yet she's being told what she can think and what she can say, and
Yes.
I mean, it's quite amazing, and
she's got a wonderful slogan, hasn't she? Harry Potter strikes again.
well, this is it. I mean, she's been a very successful young lady, and all power to her pen, and
Yes,
so she's in a fairly strong position to resist, as opposed to many of us who don't have her resources. But at the same time, even with her success and wealth and notoriety, she could be thrown in the slammer for something that some of the things that she's saying. I mean, it's amazing. Is that freedom of speech? I think that there should be some sort of a crime that Hamza Youssef should be thrown in the slammer himself for trying to impede freedom. I mean, it's and yet he's the person in power, and she is the target.
Yeah.
I mean, and where the hell did he come from anyway? I mean, the world is going a bit strange.
Harry, it's now past 11 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
You've been with us, God bless you, for more than an hour today,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm grateful. But coming back after the holiday, I'm happy to say that we came back with a thrust and a kick at some of the sacred cows, enough to at least perhaps be giving some thrust to the idea that don't be bullied into thinking what you don't really believe in.
That's absolutely true, and I leave you each week with a sense of guilt that I have been, throwing out willy-nilly my opinions, but I may be wrong. I've been known to be wrong. My wife tells me so quite often. But it's the need to talk in these open terms, to express oneself, to challenge somebody, to come back and show where we're wrong.
Absolutely.
And if we're shown to be wrong, we've got to admit it. But there's no open debate at the moment, and that's I think the advantage of this kind of a program. Obviously, we'll offend some people. Some people think we're crazy, we're nuts, we're silly old fuddy-duddies, and in many ways we may well be. But unless these views are expressed in the public place, they will never be heard, and we'll be living in a smaller and narrower world.
Yeah, that's right. Is a one-thought state is the most dangerous thing of the lot.
Absolutely.
Harry,
anyway, had a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, we'll talk to you next Monday.
I'm sorry, what's that?
We'll talk to you next Monday.
With great pleasure. With great pleasure. Hope we haven't offended too many people.
Well, I hope we have. It might make them get their finger out.
Okay. Well, God bless you all.
Cheers, Harry.
Bye, Keith. Bye, everybody.
Well, there you are. It's Harry Atherton with lots of good views. I think it is so long since we gave you the newspaper front pages. So I'll very quickly trot through them again before we say goodbye, particularly since we haven't done it for some time because of the long weekend. Just going back to the top is the Times. Iranian general killed as Israel bombs a consulate. That is the situation in the Middle East is hotting up considerably. and is all sorts of things which are going on in the background that aren't getting the headlines they deserve, such as Netanyahu's various strategies inside Israel with his sworn enemies, the Hamas. The Financial Times: Turkish opposition emphatic win in big cities deals, heavy blow to Erdogan, and it seems that all is not well with that dictatorship. So things are changing in Turkey. The economy will not be enough to save Sunak, Tories warn. Is immediate finances is the country isn't generating enough to pay for all the things that it's doing, including the triple lock. Record migrant arrivals already, and new legislation in Scotland. Come and arrest me, says J.K. Rowling. The Guardian: Tories accused as zero progress on half of levelling up goals laid bare. The levelling up it's always been a wishy-washy sort of situation to me. I just don't see how you're going to do it. You're tampering with people's minds. The Daily Telegraph: stealth tax raid on 1.6 million pensioners. The triple lock and the failure to freeze other costs. It means that the increase will only pay for the new increases in costs. So don't count the pennies in your pocket just yet. Mirror: GP appointment scandal. Doctor won't see you now or any time this month, as the waiting list saw, and that's very true. I put it down in the main to the NHS being the administrators, not the doctors and nurses. Although the junior doctors seem to have got the bit between their teeth, is they want more money when there is none to be had. The Daily Express: 10 million junk food addicts costing Britain billions. That is, if you want to stuff your face with junk food, it's leading to obesity and all sorts of other illnesses for which we got to pay. The Daily Mail: arrest me defiance of J.K. Rowling as she dares police over new Scottish hate crime law. Well, we just talked about that, and that comes into law today and in Scotland, and she ain't having any of it, and she's quite right too. The Sun it just shows what Harry says: is we've lost our sense of identity. We don't know what we are. We don't know what values to stand for, because the flag that we are going to send to the Olympics is a joke. I mean, it's like football shirts now. You can't look at the television screen and just tell who is Manchester United or who is Leeds or who is Leicester. You have to be told because of the silly patterns that they have. Well, they're doing the same thing with the national flag now, and it's about time that wokeism stopped. And the Star: hug a girl. It says there's a scientist or a naturalist who says that charismatic birds deserve our respect, saying that we should respect the seagull when it comes to try and nick our chips for being daring and adventurous. So there we are. That's it. That's it for today. Do join us tomorrow. Got a few more radical thoughts. May make you angry. It was often been said about Mirador, we are like a Marmite. Some people love us, some people hate us. But whoever comes into contact never, ever forgets us. Toodaloo. From Lewis. Black Horse Pub.